OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's Thursday. This interminable week is nearly over. You can get us on the hashtag OTB AM. You can get us on 0879 180 180, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Tell us that you are somewhere sunny in the world. The best place we got was rainy London yesterday, and we got like, in the future I will be in Montevideo, but not currently. So if you're, if you're up late or coming home early in Melbourne or somewhere, then we'd love to hear from you.
Got a great DM yesterday from at Peter Hamrock, who says, Ger was saying, where are people tuned in listening to you in the morning? I tune in every day from Sissimut, Greenland. I have to listen in the evening on Spotify, but it's great to keep up with everything every day. Also a huge fan of the crappy quiz. So Greenland, I don't think we've had and he sent in a picture as well, which is not looking sunny. Well, I guess it is kind of looking sunny, but it's very snowy in Greenland, as you can imagine.
Still sunny, right? Still snowy, right?
Yeah. It's a pretty lovely vista, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, cool country.
The frozen tundra of Greenland is where... Well, that was where David Albarn, or somewhere up there anyway, generally it was Iceland, that caused them to create such wonderful music.
This is a bit of background there. Ger went to see David Albarn a couple of weeks ago and thought he was going to get the hits, but actually he just got sounds from the Nordic
Sounds from an
area.
interior monologue from somebody who's spent a lot of time on the couch smoking dope. That's what it sounded like. The type of stuff that you would have made in your bedroom as a 19-year-old when you discovered like how to make music on the Amiga.
Would go again?
Well, I'd go and see Gorillaz, who are coming back, turns out. I mean, that would be... And maybe I would know better the next time. It's actually my fault. But anyway, the frozen tundra is where they're going to kick Frank Lampard after this, right? It's like... So I only flick through Sky, have the red button where they show you all the chances. And it definitely seemed like it was a seesaw roller coaster game in terms of the chances. But Richarlison was amazing. He's getting a good move. He's realised... 5 weeks of good football right now is going to catapult me to Manchester United, or couldn't go to Liverpool. Could he go to Liverpool? Wouldn't he be perfect in that team as just an extra one? So instead of having, they can get rid of one of those, maybe Roberto Firmino, your time is up. We're going to cash in on you.
Possibly. He's definitely good enough to play mid-table Premier League football at least. Obviously, Nathan's thing over the last couple of years has been best player outside the top four. I think he's come back to the pack a good bit over the last season and a half. Still an excellent player. But what's interesting is that our players now fighting to get that move away from Everton in the summer, or fighting to not get a deduction in their wages. Probably a bit of both.
Oh, yeah.
But it did seem when they went 1-0 down last night, it was like, right.
You might even get more money if you get a move.
Well, possibly. And you'll easily get a move if you go down. But when they went 1-0 down last night, it kind of felt as if they'd all came to that realisation that they were all fighting for a good pay packet next year. And they do end up taking the lead, and it's like, okay, everything's fine. But it turns out they're in a really bad place, confidence-wise, and that's what happens when you make mistakes.
They had a lot of chances. He picked a strange team. There was a few kids in the team, and Seamus Coleman doesn't use all his subs. I don't know, Frank Lampard looks like he's floundering a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit...
So Burnley beat Manchester United beat Everton 3-2 yesterday, in case you're all wondering what we're talking about. And it was an 85th minute winner.
Yeah.
And there was a 92nd minute chance for Everton to equalise, which just agonisingly goes wide.
A little part of joy has always been part of Frank Lampard and the way he speaks. Everybody takes the piss out of it. It's the ha no, but seriously elements to his post-match interviews. That's now gone. It's now just no,
all
but seriously.
Serious, all the time.
It's all seriously. And there was not even a single sort of ha-ha at all in his post-match interview with Sky Sports yesterday. Beforehand, he was saying on Tuesday, I'm really excited. I love being involved in the competitive games. I'm calm and I'm excited, was his press conference on Tuesday. Last night, it was not that. It was blaming the individual mistakes. A little bit of an allusion to the regime before him. Some of the errors that were popping up before he got there were still there. But at the same time, he did look like somebody who wasn't overly pressurised by the scenario. He was just down on himself last night. And he said, if the players don't realise they're in a battle, they realise it now.
I mean, do you remember his time at Chelsea? It was always individual errors. It was never a systemic issue. It was never anything that had worked on the training ground. It was never, it's my fault. It was always, that's individual errors are costing us. And then Tuchel came in and there were no more individual errors.
You can do both, as Tuchel pointed out last night. You can pretty much take responsibility yourself and eviscerate your players, which is what Tuchel did in his press conference yesterday. But it's Everton's fixtures list as much as the performance last night, which gives people massive cause for concern. It's Manchester United, then Leicester, then Liverpool, then Chelsea, then Leicester again, and then they play Watford, Brentford, Palace before Arsenal on the final day of the season. So it's an extremely difficult fixtures run. The only thing you could say is that arguably their best performance under Lampard so far was in the game against Manchester City, which they probably should have drawn if there wasn't a ridiculous penalty shout given to Manchester City.
Yeah, they're not completely gone, and it's not like they folded completely. They played some okay football in patches. They created chances, and it'll be very interesting to see if they can dig it out from here. I mean, it would be a great story if Everton were to go down, given everything that's happened at the club over the last period of time. It's almost like you can't just willy-nilly have an approach to something and think it's all going to be fine. The amount of money that they've spent, for them to go down would be ridiculous. And for Burnley to even be capable of pulling it out at this stage is remarkable.
It would be. I'm also, it's not going to happen, but I'm also kind of like looking at Watford this morning. Looking at did you see the little slide rule pass by Roy Hodgson on the training ground over the last couple of days? Just a silky footballer, still got it. And you're looking at that, you're looking at their fixtures list. They've got Leeds and Brentford next up. They also have to play Burnley and Everton. Like, Watford still have the keys in their hand. Now, they do have to play Manchester City, and they have to play Chelsea in the last day of the season. So it's a very mixed fixture list for them. But in that part of the table, the winnable fixtures are against teams around them. So it is not ridiculous to think that they could also have a say in this. But I do think Burnley and Sean Dyche is the man you're backing over Frank Lampard and Hodgson every day of the week. And I think we've done this a couple of times in the show where we've just looked at the managers in that section of the table, and when Everton appointed Frank Lampard, you always thought that could be the thing that does suck them into that relegation battle and eventually get them relegated, just at the standard of guy that they have standing on the sideline.
If he brings them down, does he get to try and bring them up, or
No.
is that the door?
I'd say it's a door, isn't it? I'm not sure. Like, we'll be chatting to Phil about this later on. I was chatting to him in the office, and I think he's of the opinion that he wouldn't be surprised if Frank Lampard didn't see the season out, that if it's crisis mode, they push the Duncan Ferguson button again.
No, you can't push Duncan Ferguson now. No, you need somebody else. You'd need a specialist.
Like, the thing is, the specialist who would avoid relegation feels like the same sort of specialist who would navigate a tricky championship next season.
Yeah, so
and that guy's not Frank Lampard in either of those situations, it feels.
It's very difficult to know how good a manager Frank Lampard is, because he doesn't look very good at the moment at all.
Yes,
we
are guessing, of course.
There is no evidence apart from that one period where the team did qualify for the Champions League, and we need to go back. I would need to go back and see how the other teams collapsed around him for them to get in at that stage. But like, if you sack him now, which it's a strong possibility that happens, right? Like, if you would have to think about it if you were involved in the club, who could you bring in? You're not bringing Big Sam in,
like that. But that's what you're talking about. It's that sort of realm.
I mean, if you are bringing Big Sam in, you're explicitly stating at the final whistle on the final game of the season, you get out the door. There will be a wheelbarrow of cash in your car, and you never come back. We will never look at each other in the morning. We will delete each other's phone numbers. It's fine. We will enjoy our time together, but then when the time is over, there will be no communication.
How many games did he get at Everton last time? I'm just looking at it up here. 26 games, at 38% winning record. Could a 38% winning record be good enough for him to get Everton out of the situation? I'm not so sure, but it feels as every person that's Everton are linked with, it's just kind of this sense of horror, like whether it's Rafa, who eventually did get appointed, or potentially Big Sam, because you know that if Lampard is close to the exit door, he will be in the frame to be appointed. Like, I mean, Everton fans are so paranoid about would-be managers that they sacked a guy that they never even appointed a few months ago, when Vitor Pereira's name was on graffiti outside Goodison Park. Pereira out. Was Lampard in on that piece of graffiti?
I think so, yeah. Well, they got their wish. Always listen to the fans, because they know best, eh?
Yeah, Pereira out, Lampard in was actually the piece of graffiti.
What do the Everton fans think? What do they think is going to happen, and what do they want to happen? Do you have to give Frank Lampard a few more weeks, like? Do you? Or do you absolutely not have to give him a few more weeks? Would Seamus Coleman be a better manager for Everton for the rest of the season than Frank Lampard?
The question, well, I mean, what's the net win here? I think it was John Joe Kenny was in it right back yesterday. Didn't necessarily stop them from falling to and another embarrassing defeat. Coleman couldn't get scapegoated last night, which is definitely the positive from an Irish perspective. Would he, as manager, be better than John Joe Kenny as right back? I would say some Everton fans would say yes. I think that they've been bashing Coleman for the last little while.
I wonder who he'd pick. at right back? Would he pick himself or would he pick John Joe Kenny?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm not sure he'd probably pick Kenny, to be honest. Go. You can't do player manager at this stage.
You can. Why not? Why not? Maybe twice.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is on the table right now for Everton. Like, it's who even is who's in the Big Sam category these days? Like,
I don't
it feels
know.
like we've moved beyond that.
Well, Roy Hodgson, someone's already pressed the panic button for that. Would Nuno save them?
Ooh, I'm not sure about that. Like, it does feel as if we've moved towards kind of like quite hipster appointments in and around that area. Like, not that Leeds would ever have gone for a Big Sam or anything like that, but he wasn't in the conversation for that job when it came up. The last time a relegation threatened team had a vacancy.
His moment has passed. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, you know, could you break him out, or could you break Harry Redknapp out?
Harry.
Like, what? So what's worse here?
Yeah, like it would be funny if Lampard got sacked and his uncle got brought in, and that was it. Sorry, mate. We're keeping it in the family, but you're just the wrong
That's
guy.
better. The money goes to one of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And it's a 2.5-year deal as well that Lampard was on, so it's a fair.
I presume
that he would
there is
get.
a break clause where you take the team down. It's again, we never speak of this again.
Like, I wonder, did they even consider the relegation consequences if they appointed Frank Lampard? Because like it felt like, again, just go back to the Leeds example. Like, I'm not sure if this is the truth, but it does feel that if Jesse Marsh had taken Leeds down and they had gone to Championship next season, that would have been a manager that they would have had a plan around. And I accepted there's like a harshness around Lampard, an extra harshness because of the player that he was, and maybe the personality that he is a little bit, that he is uber confident, but that does lead to maybe just kind of cynicism around him.
He had an amazing life and decided to get back into football as a manager because there's a competitive urge he has to scratch. And I don't know, people sometimes should just ignore go and play a lot more golf, take up darts, do something. You know, it shouldn't be that hard to take up. But anyway, like, he could have just sat in a TV studio and had the crack. He could have sold monkey NFTs. Like, whatever.
Like his buddy John Terry. Well, John Terry did a smart thing, going in behind the scenes. You can scratch that itch. Do you have to be the front man with your hands in the pocket to fight that itch, or can he be sitting down in the dugout running out whenever your team scores a big goal? Do you have to be the number one?
Yeah, you don't, because like life has dealt you a genetic lottery ticket that has come up with 6 numbers, and you are minted for life. Like, it's almost impossible for you to go broke because you're that rich. Now, a lot of the footballers did their best to go broke with, bad investments and illegal tax things around movies. But look, I don't think Lampard was one of those. He by all accounts, he was smart from the get-go. Why does he need this? Why does he need to now be reviled? Why did he need to break the relationship that he had with the Chelsea fans?
I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's what you just said. It's that competitive itch. It's that the feeling of actually being part of something that is a winning thing. And like, that doesn't necessarily, like, not getting relegated now for Everton.
This is Michael Jordan bullshit, right?
Like, how do you mean, like the baseball stuff?
Well, no, just I have to be the most competitive at everything I ever do. Like, by all accounts, Michael Jordan's a bad gambler, but he feels the need to win.
Yeah. I guess there's definitely a part of that comes with the ex-player going into management, but there's no question that like all the managers have played football at some level, bar a few notable exceptions. Like, it's not necessarily granted that just because you've been an excellent footballer you will be a bad manager. I accept that the correlation is actually probably the opposite in a lot of cases, but like he obviously just wanted to do this thing, and like, I think the early signs are that it's probably not going to work out. But Everton is also a basket case, and they've proven that time and time again. Rafa Benitez is not a bad manager.
No, but also the signing of Dele Alli was one of the stupidest things that anybody's ever done in the Premier League. It was absolutely ludicrous.
And you can't blame Lampard for that.
Well, he did, why not?
I mean, there's definitely conversations happening above his head, and
No, just say no.
Yeah, just
no. You're spending actual money on this. Now, it looks like they'll never. The trigger to spend all the rest of the money is never going to happen, is it? But he'll have to pay his wages. Oh my God, that was one of the stupidest. And this isn't after timing, by the way. We said it at the time. So it's 7:45 this morning. We haven't even talked about Ten Hag. Gonna bag Hag is the headline. Manchester United are closing in on the appointment of Eric Ten Hag. Are we going to call him Hag, or is it not Ten Hag?
It's Ten Hag.
Yeah, but gonna bag Hag. like, that's the Sun. Their sub-editors working overtime. So he's the man. They've decided he's the guy that they want, and they're going to get him. This is interesting, I suppose, because he's come with a very specific style of play that he wants, and it's obviously quite flexible, but it's the Ajax style. It's the Johan Cruyff imprint, which obviously worked particularly well at Barcelona and has worked at Ajax to a certain extent. It has been very successful locally. Reached the Champions League semi-final, unfortunate not to go through. Right appointment? A better long-term appointment than Pochettino? What do you think?
I have no idea. That's the truth. It's very, very hard to tell. It's definitely, it seems like a better move than, say, appointing Solskjaer would have been. It definitely feels, again, with the benefit of hindsight here, a little bit a better appointment than Jose Mourinho. Even at the time, you wouldn't be 100% sure of that one. Like, I wonder where Ajax going to take out a full page ad in the Amsterdam press, or it was Manchester Evening News, and say thank you, Erik ten Hag, for everything that you did, and then that'll be just the start of the downfall, because that seemed to be a bad curse for Donny van de Beek when he joined.
Does he just bring Donny van de Beek back and turn him into a footballer again, and it's like you get two for the price of one? Is that part of their thinking here?
I'd be very surprised if getting the best out of Donny van de Beek was part of it. I think they've really, well, Manchester United have shown problems in being able to be willing to cut their losses over the last little while, but I'm not sure. Like, I think Ten Hag says to me that Manchester United are willing to take a bit more of a long-term approach, but that doesn't seem to be in keeping with anything Manchester United have done over the last little while. The signing of Cristiano Ronaldo flies entirely in the face of a club that have a long-term approach. It says to me, though, that if Ten Hag is coming in, you can say good luck to Ronaldo, you can say good luck to Pogba, you can say that trust in the youngsters who are hungry, which, he was saying that again? Wayne Rooney. Wow, it has been a long week.
It has. That was only Monday night.
That was only 3 days
Today's
ago.
only Thursday morning. It's not even Thursday evening yet.
So that Wayne Rooney idea of like rewarding players who are young and hungry, like Ten Hag would be the exact sort of manager that would do that. But it is still guesswork, because we thought we knew what other managers were going to do with different clubs, and we thought that Manchester United were on the right track over the last little while. It looks like a decent move, but the question for me is, was he their number one choice, or was Pochettino the number one choice?
I'd say they got their number one choice. No, it feels that way. Like, Pochettino has made it known he would like to work again in the Premier League. I was thinking, are there other Premier League teams who are looking at Pochettino going, yeah, okay. I mean, I suspect Newcastle could be interested in upgrading this summer. Could Villa be interested in upgrading to getting Pochettino instead of TVG? I don't know. Are there other teams along there?
Poch to Newcastle looks like that's a good shout. I think that could be something that could happen down the line, and he'd have the experience of working with mega rich owners. But maybe he hates his life after working with mega rich owners and the array of talent. But maybe Newcastle will do things differently. Maybe there won't be
Maybe the football manager hated having access to the world's best players and loads of money.
Yeah, it does sound a bit stupid actually when you put it that way. A dressing room full of divas is probably what I was trying to say.
Yeah, okay.
It's only time, like, anybody who's going to make a defined prediction on how Manchester United are going to fare over the next year.
Oh, we present a sports breakfast show every morning. That's your job. Literally, you've got one job, is to
I've
tell us what you think.
I've tried and I failed at Manchester United too many times for me to.
What else have you? How did you fail?
Down. The divas in the dressing room have.
How's your boy Timo Werner getting on?
Yeah, I'm still going to cling to that. Timo Werner will come good someday. He'll definitely score a goal.
It's 7:48 this morning. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The thing is that it looks like it's Ten Hag's. That kind of story broke yesterday morning-ish, and now everybody has stacked it up. So whether or not they're all taking the original story and reporting on it, or it's just a copy and paste job, we'll wait and see. But certainly that is the mood music at the moment. Stranger things have happened in football. The deal hasn't been done. If you're a Man United fan, are you happy? Are you a little bit suspected that this might not work out? Tell us your thoughts this morning. Power rankings, hurling, 7:45. Will this morning. Queenie's going to talk to us at 8:10. We might talk some stuff other than Munster, but we might not. We're promising nothing. The Masters at 8:25. Everybody is ready for this now. Sports pages at 8:40. We've got a report on Ardoyne, or the Ardoyne as it used to be known in news reports. Heather Payne 9:10. Phil Egan at 9:15. And some Simon Cooper goodness after the Champions League last night at 9:30. A reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. 19 degrees but overcast in Geelong, lads, says Shay. That seems cool. I would have assumed it was always hot.
What season is it there? That's just coming off peak, isn't it?
It's autumn. Or fall, as it gets referred to repeatedly by Seamus Power in today's bet. I'm like, come on, you can't be doing that now.
But he's entrenched in the US lingo at this
I know,
point.
but you're still from Waterford.
Yeah.
If you went back now and were like talking to John Milan and Ken McGrath and a couple of the lads, and you were like, I was over there in fall, they'd be like, they would be breaking their holes laughing at you.
Seamus Power has to go at Losme County if he wins the Masters. There's no other possible outcome here that would be acceptable.
I seen the Gorillas Malahide a few years ago. Very underwhelming, says John.
Agreed. I was there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Shite.
Wasn't great.
Was
I'd
it?
love to see him indoors potentially.
This is the 3 Arena, I think, is it?
Yeah, I think so. But or else just at a dark outside thing. It felt very bright. It was a bit of a summer, so that tends to happen.
Yeah. So you need darkness.
I think so. I think
you need to be in the same state that he was in when he was playing a couple of weeks ago.
Possibly, but yeah, no, I'd agree with John on that one.
Dennis wants to know, is Ger Coleman's cousin or agent? First United should sign him now, he should replace Lampard. My point about United signing him was very clear. They needed characters in the dressing room who weren't absolute. You can fill in the rest of that, and it turns out they didn't have enough of those. They didn't have enough people who were actually brave or who had moral courage, is the phrase that I was looking for there.
It's worth reiterating that Seamus Coleman's cousin is Desi Farrell. Like, I mean, sure, it's not like that is a fact that's worth repeating repeatedly because I keep forgetting about it.
Dahi says Marcelo Bielsa to the Toffees rescue. It's just, I mean, it wouldn't work, would it? It would be glorious. That would be going down swinging.
Well, like, but they'd also be coming up swinging. Like, that's the thing. Bielsa's got.
If you're doing the deal to say you're our guy now for the next while, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I like that makes mid-term sense for sure. Like, he'd probably need maybe a couple of windows and a couple of pre-seasons to get this team in shape, but that would be a lot of fun.
Real Madrid beat Chelsea 3-1 last night. We'll talk about that in a little while, but it is time for the Hurling Power Rankings.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
that like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
Oh, hang on, a late weather report. It's not sunny Melbourne, unfortunately. It's out the window from Johnny Kennedy of the Long Hall Pub in New York, who's in Augusta, and it's absolutely pissing. It's horrific weather. Oh, you can hear it there. Sorry, the sound is up.
I saw that there was like a.
Good morning, Johnny.
So he's obviously in Georgia.
Yeah.
So there was like a tornado ripped through a part of Georgia the other day on Tuesday. It looked absolutely terrifying.
The reports earlier in the week, as Nathan told us, noted meteorologist Nathan Murphy, it'll be grand for Thursday. It doesn't look like it's going to be grand. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be a later than expected start. Will, good morning to you from sunny Offaly.
Yeah, it actually is lovely here. The sign's up for Shane Lowry. You talk about Seamus Power and loving his county and so on. Shane Lowry posters up all across the town in Tullamore and in some of the pubs as well, hoping that maybe the rain might help him to have a good finish this Sunday.
That's class. They just put posters up and go, yeah, go on.
Pretty much. I think a lot of them were kind of put up by the Chamber of Commerce back around the Open, understandably, and then for the Ryder Cup. And seems the same printers have got the job for his latest run to Augusta this time around as well. So, yeah, there's a bit of a kind of a party atmosphere around Lowry this week. And his old club, Esker Hills, are having their kind of annual Augusta fundraiser at this stage. I think that starts later on today, ahead of the coverage starting on the TV. So yeah, there's a real kind of buzz of excitement about Larry this week.
All right, well, fingers crossed he can do something. Right, the hurling. Let's get to this, Will. How's it going? How have the debates been on the podcast about the power rankings in recent weeks?
Yeah, it's like there's a very different approach with the two guys. So Paul Murphy is very reasonable and conservative, and he's taken championship potential into account when he's looking at where he's going to rank his teams. And James Skehill has been happy enough to just hot take off the end of every round of the league and just say, right, Wexford got beaten by 19, let's put them down to 7th, and let's put Waterford right up on top, and where are we going to put in Limerick? So it's been lively debates between the two. We'll be doing our big bumper championship preview this weekend, which will be out around 7 o'clock on Monday to listen to, and you can watch the video next Tuesday. But I'm intrigued to see where the guys think the teams are at, because now we're looking at a championship which has rolled around a lot quicker, Jared, than usual off the back of the league. So I feel like we've got a really good feeling about league form going into the championship, but some huge fixtures on the first 2 weekends of the championship. Galway against Wexford particularly. Waterford's going up against Tipperary, which is a huge game for Tip if they're going to have a chance to come out of Munster, because it's very difficult at this stage to call the 3 teams coming out of Munster particularly. But I think as we'll get into the rankings here, Leinster is going to be incredibly difficult to call for the 3 qualifiers as well.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's going to be a completely different championship because the weather and the top of the ground and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a possibility it's bad weather all the way from now until the end of the hurling season, and that would just mean that some teams won't have the advantage that they do have when the weather is that broiling sunshine that we saw for a large portion of last year's championship.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, the split season has brought this along where we're now getting used to the second week of July being the end of the championship, as opposed to really when the hurling championship gets going with quarterfinals and semi-finals. So everyone's going to have to adjust. A lot of teams are going to be out of action even by the end of May when the group stages come to an end in the round robin section in both Munster and Leinster. So it's intriguing to see who's going to come out. Maybe I'll just jump into where we are towards the bottom of the table then, because we haven't had an update for a couple of weeks because I was off, but the dust is settled now at the end of the league, so I think we can be more conclusive about the places. So in 24th place we've got Mayo, who are relegated to Division 3 for next season. Very disappointing campaign for them, no wins at all, and Tyrone will replace them in 2023 in Division 2B. Wicklow, very disappointing campaign. They stayed up just ahead of Mayo in the relegation final, but there was a lot more expected of Wicklow in Division 2B this season. They're in 23rd. Unchanged are London in 22nd. Thought they were going to be in real relegation trouble when they were hammered by Donegal in the first round. It was 3-16 to 8 points, but London rallied with some good results at the end of 2B. They just missed out on the semi-finals, but were safe of relegation, so they stay 22nd. Donegal, one of our big jumpers. I think they started the season in 24th. They're going to finish it in 21st, winning 4 of their 5 games in the regular section of Division 2B. The only defeats that they had, they lost to the eventual champions Derry, and they were 1 point defeat to Sligo in the semi-finals, but a really positive start to the year for Donegal. Sligo, who got to the final in 2B and beat Donegal by a point in the semi, they're up to 20th place. Player to keep an eye out throughout the summer, Gerard O'Kelly-Lynch. He scored 4 goals and 35 points across 5 games in the league, which is remarkable scoring from the Sligo chief scorer there. Meath come down to 19th place. They were relegated to Division 2B. You'll remember they started with that win against Kildare, which looked like it was going to be a good starting point to stay in Division 2A for next season, but went on to lose their next 4 games and they were relegated. 18th place are Derry, who are unchanged. They're the winners of Division 2B. Beat Sligo in the final last weekend, 123 to 215. Building very nicely on their run to the Christie Ring Cup final from last summer, and they're up into the 18th place. They're unchanged from our last rankings, but have jumped up as the season's gone on. Kildare jump up after staying up in Division 2A. They got a win against Down, who got to the final. They had a draw at the end of the campaign as well, which saw them avoid relegation following a loss to their neighbours Meath in the opening round. So Kildare did well to stay in Division 2A. One of the real disappointments...
Sorry, hang on. You should all follow Dermot Ling on Instagram. He took the Kildare hurlers up to the Hill of Allen, and they went foraging and camping and cooked a raw deer and sang songs and swam in the sea. So I'm telling you, big things are coming for the Kildare hurlers this year.
Interesting. Not just the Naas players coming back in, but this retreat may well have been the reason for their upturn in form towards the end of the campaign. But yeah, they stay in Division 2A for next year. Moving on to our 16th to 9th then. 16th place, one of the real disappointments, lads, of this year, Carlow, heading into now a 3rd consecutive year in Division 2A for 2023. When they got relegated in 2020, the feeling was that their stay in the 2nd division might be a short one. Again, they were in second place. Sorry, go on.
So some of the fallers are worse than the others?
Yeah, you've got some in pink.
Oh, really? That might well be just the wrong colour saved in Photoshop. But yeah, Carlow.
I was like, oh, Offaly and Antrim, you've decided something special with this.
Yeah, Carlow should just be red in their falls and down. They were second in 2021, so that was the year that there was a straight promotion where Offaly finished top and there was no league final. They would have been hopeful of getting to the league final this year, finished up in 4th place and missed out in a place in the final. So that draw against Galway a few years ago feels a long time ago now for Carlow. Kerry are down.
We don't have to do all of these well, you're grand. Let's keep going.
We go to the top. They were the McDonagh Cup finalists from last year. They would have been hoping to reach the Division 2A final.
Give us a word on Offaly. What do you think of Offaly's?
All right, Offaly were relegated, obviously. They lost the one game that mattered. They wouldn't have been expected to win any of the games in Division 1A, but they would have been expected to put up a much better performance against Antrim in the relegation playoff. And real problems, Oisin Kelly still not back from injury. They've got no primary possession winner in the forward line without Oisin Kelly. Teams have run through the middle, and that's what Antrim did in the relegation playoff. So it looks very difficult for them to overtake Antrim in the McDonagh Cup. Those 2 teams meet in the first round of the McDonagh with Antrim at home.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be difficult for Offaly to reach the final.
Okay, so I see Clare in 9. Let's look at the the rest of it in its totality, so we can. Tipperary are 8th, the 8th best team in the country. Dublin are 7, Galway 6, Kilkenny 5, Wexford 4, Limerick 3, Cork 2. Oh, right, Waterford number 1. I think. Okay, where you
Sorry, explain to us what are the changes here exactly? Where have Waterford gone from up to 1?
So Waterford in the last rankings, which we did middle of last month, I think we're in 2nd place, and they've gone up now to 1st. They've overtaken Cork. Understandably, after the way they played in the league final, I think Waterford at this stage, lads, look like they are very realistic championship contenders to Limerick. I would still have Limerick as the favourites going into the championship, but you cannot ignore what Waterford have achieved during this league. Like, they're averaging 30 scores a game. They scored, again, 4 goals in the league final last weekend. They're just... sheer lethalness and single-mindedness to go for goal is remarkable. So 15 shots they've had on goal over the last 3 games, they've scored 10 goals. So all of them were really, really well taken last weekend. They were boosted by the fact that Stephen Bennett came back in, scored 2 goals and 11 points. They've got Jamie Barron back in training. They look the best conditioned team in the country right now, and also the team who've got the best options across their panel, which is something that Limerick maybe don't quite have if we're looking at the attrition of a round robin and the amount of games that will be played in a 40-day period over the next while. So if you're a Waterford fan, you're really happy. And when I was talking to Michael Ryan, the former Waterford boss, at the weekend, I said, how do they kind of keep an edge on this now? Because there is going to be expectation that Waterford are going to do well. He said the key is Liam Cahill. He thinks Liam Cahill is now the best manager in the country, and he says there's no chance that Liam Cahill will allow Waterford, for the players at least, to lose the run themselves after what's happened this year in the league.
I think John Kiley is still the best manager in the country at the moment. I mean, obviously Brian Cody was, and maybe Brian Cody's doing an even better job than everybody to get them to where they are. But like,
there's every chance you're right, but like, have we not just made the point on this show a couple of weeks ago that it's impossible to know how good the great managers are? Like, how great was Jim Gavin, how great was Brian Cody? Yes, there's no question that they were great, but the level of their greatness is hard to quantify. Like, how do we know that Liam Cahill actually just isn't the best manager in the country?
Oh yeah, look, this is me giving Michael Ryan's opinion. Listen, I actually think that Liam Cahill has to go on to win All Ireland to be considered ahead of Kiley in any way. Look at everything that Kiley has won over the last 4 years, where Limerick have been almost perfect. It's not just been the 3 All Ireland titles that they've collected. They've also competed, with the exception of this year and the COVID year of last year, exceptionally well in the league. They've run off Munster championships. We saw the best comeback win in recent years against Tipperary last year when they were really up against it. What defeat have they had outside of that? One semi-final against Kilkenny, where Kilkenny really rattled them. That's remarkable consistency.
That Tip game needs a 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Like, I think we kind of glossed over it. It was a massive bomb going off.
Yeah.
Like, Tipperary have never been the same.
No, and like even the characters on both sides, like the sheedy roar at half time.
Yeah.
That's like
the empty stadium, the nearly empty stadium, but like still enough people for you to go, oh, what's going on here? And the red card that wasn't. Like, a big moment. Big moment.
Kyle Hayes' goal, which is one of the best goals we've ever seen in Championship as well. It's just a remarkable game.
Yeah, well, this obviously is interesting. Like, if we'd gone back maybe 18 months and Waterford had put up this sort of league, we'd be like, okay, that's Limerick's kryptonite right there. Goals will beat Limerick. It does feel that after last year, though, Limerick had got to a level where it was like, it doesn't matter, Limerick can now add a goal to their game. You mentioned the Kyle Hayes goal and the goals that he scored last year. That seemed to have been something that they worked on last year. So are they actually just ahead of the curve here completely, and no matter what Waterford can do in terms of getting green flags, it actually just won't matter if Limerick hit that level again?
Well, the kryptonite's an interesting point, because Limerick supporters will be the first one who will be listening or watching to us this morning and will say, look, the last few times that Limerick have met Waterford in meaningful games, Limerick have come out on top.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to see them play each other in the league this year. So that makes that game in the second round of the Munster Championship all the more intriguing. That
Where is
you're
it?
looking at a Limerick team, lads, who've had 3 or 4 weeks now to get everything right after the league finished. I think of all the teams who would have wanted to play in the knockout stages, it didn't really matter to Limerick because of the bank of work that they have over the last 4 years and the amount of winning that they've had. I'm sure that they have been able to just fine-tune the little bits and pieces that they need to get right for Championship. And if they can keep we talked about their flaws in the last few updates on the power rankings, but if they can keep 15 men on the field, they still have got probably 3 of the best 5 players in the country right now. They've got the best starting 15. The only real doubt you'd have, maybe Peter Casey's injury takes a bit away from their forward line, but with the one hand that takes away, the other hand give it. And like Colin O'Neill has been brilliant for them during the league.
Yeah.
He looks like a real find and could be a championship starter. Played really well for the Limerick 20s last night in their win against Clare. So I think Limerick are not too far off where they were going into last year, and they'll be very quick to point out they started the league very slowly in 2021. Middle of the summer they were the best team.
The 23rd of April, that's a Saturday evening, 7 o'clock in the Gaelic grounds, that game. So hopefully that's a complete sellout. Damien says it's 27 degrees and sunny in Brisbane. That sounds about right. That's what we're talking about. Rory says, good morning guys from sunny Madrid. A little bit of hyper atmosphere here after last night's performance. Tori says, listening from sunny Zurich, looking out onto Zurich Lake, it's a mood booster. It makes listening to ye complain a little easier.
Beautiful spot.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. The FIFA museum just around the corner, of course, but
27 quid a pint.
yeah, worth every penny.
Brian says, which county has the best combined football and hurling power ranking? Ordinarily, this would have been just one answer. It would have been Cork, but it's probably Dublin now, is it?
Galway.
Where
Dublin are ahead of Galway in your rankings.
Where are the Dubs? Can we stick that back up?
Oh yeah, no, sorry, it's a Dubs.
7th place.
It is a Dubs.
And you have them what, 4th or 5th though?
Yeah, 4th.
So very briefly, I think it's clear from your list. It's Cork coming out alongside Waterford and Limerick.
Should be, based on what we've seen so far. But like loads of doubts about Cork lads based on the way that they've defended, particularly against Waterford last weekend, where they left the door open so often for Waterford to run through them. I kind of agree with Owen Cadigan's assessment, and he's just out of the Cork panel, so he knows them far more intimately than I do, that he thinks there might be too many stickmen in the Cork defence and not enough defenders who are there to actually stop players coming through. Cork will play really nice hurling. They will come out with the ball. These are all the things that we've praised throughout the league. They've got so much firepower up front. But last week you'd have to really question the lack of intensity in the second half at Semple Stadium, and also the way that they defended. Similarly, Wexford, who've been really good and actually had the best defence in the regular section of the league, were exposed by Waterford and left wide open in that game in Nolan Park when they were routed. So they're big question marks when you're only a few weeks away from championship. You don't quickly solve them.
Yeah, I'm not writing them off on the basis of that performance. I think that like it's fixable in terms of sweepers, and there's a game plan that you can fix for that. I think why they didn't do it against Waterford, I'm not sure. That would definitely give you cause for concern. But I still think they're going to come out. But in Leinster, I don't have a clue what's going to happen.
No, neither do I. I mean, like Kilkenny really improved after their defeat against Tipperary. And that was understandable when some players were coming back in from a combination of injury and playing with Ballyhale in the All-Ireland Club Championship. The fact of it is that Kilkenny have found two players in key positions in Mikey Butler and in David Blanchfield. David Blanchfield was probably fine to the league at wing back for Kilkenny. He was brilliant throughout the campaign. And Kilkenny beat Waterford in the last round of the league to qualify. All right, they let 6 points slip against Cork at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but again, they did okay to get to the semi-finals. Quietly, they've been kind of building along. They really shell-shocked Dublin when they met in the regular section of the league back at Parnell Park, which would indicate that Kilkenny might have Dublin's number. But who's going to finish in the top three places? I think Kilkenny are going to be one of the three, but it's very difficult to tell whether it's going to be Wexford, Galway, Dublin who are going to come along with them.
If Galway don't make it, is that a disaster for them, or is that just an indication of actually there's long-term, deep-seated issues there?
Well, just to layer another question onto that, Will. The expectation after Henry took over was this is potentially number 2 team in the country.
Yeah.
So I would say that's, but maybe that's just that external noise painting it as a disaster. But I would say it surely is, no?
No, look, I think they had a mixed bag of a league. Like, on the positive side, you would say they went to the Gaelic grounds, they matched Limerick physically and beat them, and were really impressive that night a couple of months ago. Then, look, they had kind of indifferent results after that. Losing to Wexford meant it was always going to be difficult for them to qualify for the semi-finals of the league. And look, their last few games didn't really matter because they knew with 2 rounds to go that they weren't going to qualify for the knockout stages. I thought they were pretty decent. I still think they've got so much talent, particularly across that forward line, that Galway can be really good. There's no doubt that they could be a semi-finalist at the end of this year. I'd be surprised if they beat Waterford or Limerick, but then again, they might not have to beat Waterford or Limerick later this year, depending on what happens in Munster and who comes out there. But I don't know, I'm kind of thinking on the face of the talent that they have, Galway should come out. But I've been fairly impressed with Wexford, with the exception and the very important caveat: performance against Dublin in the Walsh Cup final, performance against Waterford in the semi-final. Everything in between that was really good. And for Dublin, pretty much everything outside the Kilkenny game was pretty good. So it's going to be a right old fight to see who comes out of those three teams, because I think there's 2 places available for those 3.
Yeah. All right. Will, good stuff. Not bad power rankings, I have to say. You know, you've certainly saved some face as the season has worn on. Congratulations, and I'm looking forward to your championship edition.
Can I say a very quick word to
Yeah.
Down, lads, who are one of the massive jumpers? Down went up to 13th place. Very unlucky not to be promoted. This is the vagrancy of the league, where there's only 1 place for the teams in Division 2A to go up to the top flight for next season. Almost got promotion for the first time since 2007 to Division 1. Beat Kerry, beat Westmeath in the regular section. They've got a lot to build on the Joe McDonagh Cup. I know I had a few Down supporters onto me seeing where they would go. They've gone up ahead of Offaly, Kerry and Carlow, so really good year for Down.
Comco says Tipperary getting major disrespect here. I mean, it might be right though. Like, it'd be a surprise for them to come through, given what we've seen and the injury problems they have. And Shifty Lad says, Will, most underrated presenter, producer out there. Hurling power rankings are great stuff. Eric Donovan, podcast producer too. Always a great listen.
Wholeheartedly. Well, though it's kind of like describing Paul Scholes as underrated. It just like it's underrated so much. We respect the Will O'Callaghan level here, Shifty Lad.
And I can assure Shifty Lad as well, that is not a burner account of mine.
Well, wow. I mean, that'd be quite the revelation.
It would be quite the revelation. I'm trying to stop my headphones being ripped out by Hank at the same time underneath my chair, so it's definitely not me writing on YouTube at the same time.
We still haven't done Hank's GA predictions yet.
No, and I did record a test video with him as well. I have to try and find 2 treats that he particularly likes exactly the same, because he gets confused if you put 2 that he's kind of indifferent about, and he kind of goes, why are you trying to give me 2 of them? Just give me 1. So once I can work that out, I will video one up and he can do some predictions ahead of championship.
Thanks, Libby. Yeah, championship ready Hank is what we need.
Are you giving him some screen time here this morning, you know, to help this get an extra 10,000 views?
Can do, yeah. I know Colin Boog in the background was having a look earlier when he was ripping my shoes. But,
there he is.
He's getting bigger.
He's getting very big now at this stage, yeah. He is. He's probably ready for his breakfast around about now, which it seems to be my headphones. But yeah, no, he's a good boy. He generally behaves himself, lads.
All right. Well, we'll let you both go and have your breakfast. Well, good stuff. Thanks a million. That's
Thanks,
this week's Hurling Power Rankings.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is 11 minutes past 8. We're going to take a quick break. We're back talking rugby with Quinny next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Munster fans are craving for a Munster win.
This weekend, Munster needs a win as the Champions Cup returns.
I've never had the connection to a club like I have for Munster at the moment.
It's the clash of the table toppers in the Premier League this weekend. Can Liverpool get the win, or will City hold their nerve?
Another fabulous goal from Manchester City, and Kevin De Bruyne has given them the lead.
OTB Sports Radio, the only place to hear live and exclusive radio commentary of Exeter against Munster on Saturday and Manchester City versus Liverpool on Sunday.
Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 12 minutes past 8. Alan Quinlan is with us this morning. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Good lads, thanks. And yourselves?
What kind of a week have you had?
Not too bad. No, I suppose always difficult to be doing the Munster dissecting of a bad loss at the weekend. But so the podcast was a bit negative this week, to say the least.
That's fair enough. I think there are sometimes when you just have to. It doesn't. Just things don't feel right at the moment. What's when people are talking to you about it? What are they saying to you? Like, what's the atmosphere like amongst Munster fans who know when they're talking to you that this means so much to you?
Yeah, people online. I think you can see the reaction, and I suppose some of it is a little bit nasty, and some of it is balanced and fair. And I think being balanced and fair is where you want to be, really. You don't want to hide away from the fact that the issues and the problems, and it's kind of looking like they'll peter out again. This season will peter out again with no trophy again for Munster. They always seem to have a bit of bad luck as regards the injuries and players available, and that comes down to squad depth and strength of your squad, and for all the clubs, particularly heading into Europe and in their domestic leagues this year, that's, you want players fit and healthy and your best players. And I think Munster in a position at the moment where now there's a number of players out injured, and there was last weekend, and would they make a difference to them? Yes. Is the playing style coming back to bite them a little bit again? Yes, it is. And so I think a lot of I suppose there's an air of deflation amongst the Munster fans, and I was saying that coming out of the ground last Saturday. I don't even get slagged anymore in Dublin, which is, things aren't great when that's not happening. But look, there's a frustration there amongst the Munster fans. I think, it's been a long, long time since they've won a trophy, and trophies are hard to come by. Some teams are at a different level, and unfortunately Munster are still not where you would want them to be.
Yeah, like Leinster needed Munster to be great to drive Leinster on to greatness, and you would feel that that could happen again, that Leinster could do it, having Munster be really good again, and actually occasionally beating them and keeping them sharp. It's not really good for Irish rugby to have Munster the way they are at the moment.
It's probably not good for Irish rugby and for neutrals and for people going to the games, but I don't think Leinster are too concerned. They're pretty happy that they're the dominant force in this fixture in the last number of years, and they keep winning them, and they can mix and match their team a little bit and still be in a position to win the fixture. So yeah, of course it'd be better. The same with Ulster and Connacht. I think it'd be, if you had, like every year, Jerry, we the start of every season, Leinster keep coming up as the top province, as the team to beat. It would be good if there was if we were factually correct in saying that Ulster, Connacht, Munster are in the mix, and they could win the domestic league or go on a big run in Europe as well and potentially win the tournament. I think when you probably where Munster want to get to is certainly from a Munster point of view is that you're talking about them possibly being in a position to win Europe and be certainly in the mix right at the end. I know they have been in a number of times in the last 7 or 8 years, but there's an inevitability about where they'll finish from. Probably semi-finals if they get there, and even in this run, if they were to get through Exeter, they could potentially be at home, providing it depends what happens in the Ulster-Toulouse match. They could potentially be at home in a quarter-finals. And they could get to that position, but yeah, look, I think it would be great if they got up to that level, and that's the goal. I think there is some young players that always give a little bit of, I suppose in the last couple of seasons are giving more optimism, but there's still a lot of stuff to be sorted out there, and that's the worrying part.
Like using Europe as a barometer is an interesting one, because obviously you have the seasons of 17, 18, 19 where they get to the semi-finals. In the last couple of years, obviously they didn't get there. So have they gone backwards again from 2019?
It just depends. Munster were always good, even if they hadn't the biggest or strongest squad in Europe. They were always could manoeuvre themselves through the pool stages. Get a home quarter-final, which we know from history it's very difficult for anyone to win away from home in quarter-finals, and then you're suddenly in a semi-final on. So sometimes you can be a bit unlucky with where it goes, or lucky. So I don't know. I think the frustrating part is probably the playing style and the progression of I suppose being comfortable in matches, and when you watch the game, that you can see tactically they're very astute and they're a very hard team to beat. I think they've become probably an easier team to manoeuvre around and to get a result against, because they don't have this dominant force up front, 8 forwards who are going to make it incredibly difficult for you. They're trying to change the way they play, but they're not good enough at what they're doing and how they're doing that. So have they gone backwards? Well, I don't know. I think there's probably better players now than there was a couple of years ago. If you go back to when Rassie Rasmus got Munster into that semi-final against Saracens, I think I think this playing group is probably more talented and there's probably more flair to it. But they're an easier team to beat, which is worrying.
One last question.
I think
one last question on this. Peter Marnie was asked about the coaching, and he went, "It's not ideal. We're professionals. We'll get on with it." What impact do you think it is that they don't know what's coming next?
It's a big impact, Ger, and this was always going to happen. It's been over nearly 4 months now since the Johan van Gran announcement came. It's too long. And look, I don't know why it's taken so long. There's probably some factors to that. See what candidates were interested in the job, assess that. And this is only speculation and maybe waiting to see is there more people available. I think a lot of the top coaches throughout the world, and we you saw Ronan O'Gara ruling himself out. He just signed a 3-year contract last year. I think he probably would have been the number one choice. Scott Robertson in New Zealand. From what I was told, this wasn't public, ruled himself out, I think, because one of his kids is still in secondary school and he wants to wait. Probably wants to wait and see what happens with the All Blacks, the World Cup and stuff, and also whether he'll move and to get one of his daughters through school, I think. So what candidates were available? So maybe that was a factor as well, and maybe the other side of it is then see how the season went for them, see how they progressed in the league and through this period around the Six Nations and stuff. But it's taken too long, and it does create uncertainty. There is absolutely no doubt the uncertainty hasn't helped them, and I suppose if you're a player in a group like that, you're confused as to where you're going, what's happening, and it probably has been a factor as well.
Okay. All right. The Leinster-Connacht game this weekend, right? If you are Connacht, what are you trying to do in this first leg? Like, obviously, you want to win the game and you want to keep the score down as much as you possibly can to give yourself a fighting shot in the second game. But how do you do that?
Well, I think you have to get your own basics right. And, anyone who watched the game last week, Munster-Leinster, I think you have to be at your very best when you're playing them. They're probably going to be stronger. They'll probably have a stronger team this week, given they'll have some players back. You've got to get your basics really right, and you have to be tactically good. And I spoke about this in the podcast and maybe with you early in the week. Munster were quite poor in the kicking game, the kicking exchanges. Leinster had 13 lineouts in the game. Munster had 5. That tells you that Leinster weren't kicking the ball out. They were kicking it up the middle of the field a lot, playing that ping pong tennis game with their long kicking, and Munster kicked it straight back up in the air to them. Easy pickings for Leinster's back three. They're able to launch attacks again. And if you allow Leinster, and it's very difficult, when I say the word allow, Ger, it's very difficult to stop them. But if you allow them continuously get into your half and build phases, they're going to hurt you eventually. The law of averages would say, if they're in there 10 times, they're a ruthless side who are very, very efficient when they get into that attacking zone, that they will punish you. They keep hammering away. They'll take some penalties, but more often than not, you're going to break down at some stage. Someone's going to make a mistake. They're going to wear you down. They're going to get through a tackle and they're going to finish it. And they have that ability around their decision making and their anticipation of someone making a line break and finishing things. So for Connacht, I think it's about just managing the game well, and that's where, whether it's Caelan Blade or Marmion and Jack Carty, where they play with Connacht, they're a side that really want to play and throw the ball around a little bit. So you've got to be careful. Andy Friend is not going to tell his side this week, just kick the leather off the ball and you're going to beat Leinster. You're not. They have to play. But I think it's really important that they play in the right areas. They get their own set piece right. Connacht have had those issues this year. Scrum, their line-out has been pretty good. And you want to try and starve Leinster possession, so holding on to the ball. So it's very, very obvious, but I think the kicking game is where Leinster's game has gone up another level, and just been really efficient in where they played. Like, they kicked the ball more We've had these debates over the years, Ger, about, Munster kicked the ball too much. Well, Leinster kicked the ball 3 times more than Munster last Saturday night. But 29 times. Munster kicked it 26 times. So sometimes if you look at stats and you think, well, Leinster are kicking more than Leinster. They're boring to watch. They're not. It's where they're kicking and how they're kicking. So for Connacht, I think they've got to bring their A game. And dare I say, probably the most obvious thing is you've got to physically front up against them.
Okay.
They have a kind of a brutal force, Leinster, in the breakdown, and you've got to match that or try and at least get parity there.
One last question for you that came up during the week, and Keith Wood picked his team for the weekend, and he had Carberry at fullback, and they were asked in the press conference this week about it, and Larkham said no plans to start him there at the moment. Is he a fullback? Would it be better to have Healy and Carberry on the pitch at the same time for Munster at the moment?
Possibly. I think if Mike Haley is not available, I think it's an option. Ben Healy coming off the bench. Listen, I say this. Look, when you're chasing a game and you bring players off the bench, inevitably things are going to change around. The pace is going to pick up a little bit. Casey did that. Ben Healy did that. Is there a call? Should there be a call to start both of them and just go for it from the word go? These games are really intriguing because we haven't seen the situation. I think we've seen some playoff games over the years, but the back-to-back games that you usually get around in December with the old format.
Yeah.
Where those games are always about win your home game, and if you're playing a big game team in France or England, at least try and get a losing bonus point. We won a European Cup in 2008, getting a losing bonus point in Clermont. They can be vital. This is a little bit different. Like, there's a mental challenge to this when you're playing guys one week after the other, because if you lose a match and there's a bit of niggle, and you can get fired up for the next game, and sometimes they make no sense. So there's a real intrigue into the mental side of this. But these games are about managing the scoreboard. So we're probably hoping that the European, these round 16 games, that they're brilliant rugby and it's all about, attack. It's not. It's about, if you're 15 points down in the game with 2 minutes to go and you have a penalty, you're not kicking into the corner. You might be really assessing the scenario of bring that 15 points back to 12, kick the penalty. So we may see some of that, and it'll be really intriguing to see how they play out mentally for players.
All right, Quinny, good stuff. Enjoy the games. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
That's Alan Quinlan, host of the Red 78 podcast. You can get that by searching Red 78 in whatever podcast app you use, and it's available for download right now. It is 8:27. It is time for us to turn our attention to golf and say Happy Christmas, Joe Molloy.
Happy Christmas.
How are you feeling?
Very excited. Looking forward to it. It's always the 4 days of the year, Ger, where I turn off the world, sit on the couch and change my clothes 4 days later.
That's excellent. I hope you've got the requisite snacks, etc. What do you expect to happen? It's kind of such a weird build-up to this one.
It's been Tiger Mania, hasn't it, in the build-up? So a lot of guys have gone under the radar, very much McIlroy included. It's horrible to say, but I don't know. Not because there's 5 or 6 or 7 guys who are red hot, and not because there's one dominant player that the field are all worried about. It's because there's a question mark hanging over almost everyone. Our new world number one included. He's not really the world number one at the moment, Scotty Scheffler. There's like a pass the parcel effect going on in golf. And last year, I certainly thought John Rahm, when he won the US Open and was genuinely glorious at the Ryder Cup, I thought he was primed to, quote unquote, dominate in so much as you can in golf. But he's fallen away. His putting has become very iffy, and he doesn't look too happy on the course, more so than John Rahm often doesn't look too happy on the golf course. So there's no truly dominant player at the moment, and therefore this is wide open. Again, question marks over any player you want to throw at me. I can see them winning, of course, but there's also a slight nagging concern almost over all of them. And we were just making the point on Golf Weekly that Scotty Scheffler, for instance, is 8 point something on the world ranking points at the moment. We don't have to go into the minutiae of how that's formed, but he's 8 point something. John Rahm's 8 point something, and they're all tightly bunched. Like Woods at his peak got up to 32 at one stage, world ranking points. Wow. So that was dominance. What we have now are a bunch of guys who are struggling to fill the post-Tiger vacuum. And who knows, maybe they're all just so good they're all nipping at each other's heels. But I just suspect it's a post-Tiger thing, you know. So I don't know. There's any number of guys, I mean, whoever you want to talk about, but I'd have concerns over all of them, you know, like another way.
A very general question and probably impossible to answer, but are they better than the generation of golfers that Woods was dominating? Like, it's a really interesting point you make. Like, maybe they are all so much better that they're actually quite close to where Tiger was, but a bit behind him, but not behind him the way that it appears when you do that.
I think they're all a lot better than the previous generation, and Woods at his peak is still way better than all of them. I don't think we've still fully appreciated, in a respect, how outrageous Tiger Woods was. And it's only going to be when another couple of generations go by and nobody manages to do what he did in terms of dominance that we'll look back and go, oh, now I'm really starting to get how freakish that was. So I think they are all better than the group that Woods was taking care of. And it's a deeper field. There's more of them. But if peak Tiger Woods was out there, then he would still be far and away the best player, far and away. It's
hard to compare generations because of the changes in equipment, but I guess putting averages will be fairly similar. I mean, even, I don't know, but that's again because they've outlawed certain putting styles from that time too. So, are they better putters? Are they more straight drivers? They obviously hit the ball further, but the things that maybe don't change, are they strategically more nuanced than the generation that he was up against?
I think they're better in most aspects, to be fair, because the coaching is better, video analysis is there, TrackMan is there. Like somebody like Dustin Johnson, up until 2016, wasn't an especially good wedge player, for instance. So the way he countered that was he got on TrackMan every single day and it told him his exact yardages and it measured his ball flight and his attack angle, and bit by bit he could improve very quickly. You go back to Faldo's generation, you know, they were the first generation that worked off video.
Yeah.
And they were suddenly getting into slots on their backswing. Some of it wrong, by the way, and TrackMan disproved certain things. Like there's things about how to hit a draw that were taken as read, and TrackMan has recently disproved them. But this, you know, each generation has had to work. Ben Hogan didn't have camera, Faldo did, and now we're on to TrackMan. So it's become easier to get better with each passing year. In terms of strategy, that's the one thing maybe which has gone slightly into decline, because Bryson DeChambeau's strategy, I'm sure you realise, is I'm going to hit that thing as far as I can, I'm going to go find it, and I'm going to try hit it again. So I think strategy is a little bit less nuanced, but yeah, Woods is just a total and complete freakish outlier. Stick him in any generation you want.
Okay. What represents a good weekend, a good week? Making the weekend for Tiger, is that enough for us to go, wow, that is a triumph for the human spirit?
I think so. I think him teeing off today is phenomenal. Like, it's really outrageous. There were very severe and real concerns he'd have to have his leg amputated, and then absolutely subsequent to that, the sense was these are life-changing injuries. And I spoke to a couple of people who work in the medical profession, and they said, this guy's in so much trouble. Like, it's bad. And he arrives at Augusta with an array of rods and metal and screws and anything you care to mention across that right leg. So it's kind of a miracle he's here. I think even if he misses the cut, I think it's a success. And it gets me a little bit excited for the golfing season ahead, because it means St Andrews is now a real possibility, that flat terrain. And that should suit him more so than the walk at Augusta, if not necessarily the course, because he knows Augusta like the back of his hand. I mean, he said during the week he's here to win it. He says that all the time. Freddie Couples played with him and Justin Thomas on Monday and was absolutely effusive about Woods' game. He said the driver was like a machine. He said it was every bit as long as Justin Thomas all the way around. Woods is the greatest iron player of all time. And Couples said the game looked great. Like he said, it looked great. And the only concern is the walk. So if the game is that good, and, you know, this is why I'm super excited to see him anyway, but certainly for the first hour, we're all going to be watching very closely today to see where the game is. But if the game is that good, I'm sure there are a lot of painkillers been taken, a lot of anti-inflammatories been taken, 20 full-time physiotherapists working on him after each round. But if he can get around and the game is good, then look, from his perspective, and I think it's hard, because to put a card in your hand for the first time after 14 months is huge pressure. Like, to not have a warm-up event is very difficult. But I would think his logic is, well, I'm looking around. If Scotty Scheffler is the world number one, with the greatest respect to Scotty, and nobody's in red-hot form, I'm just going to go out there. My plan on Thursday, don't make a mess of things. Shoot a 73, shoot a 74. Be in the final 2, 3, 4 groups Sunday. Have my name on the leaderboard. And in 2019, we saw Francesco Molinari, Brooks Koepka, Tony Finau all go in the water in 12, and it was the Tiger effect. It was weird to see it again a decade on from when his name on the leaderboard would freak out the others. So I'd say that's Woods' game plan. But to your question, it's already been a success. I didn't think we'd see him again this year the way he was talking.
So he's off at 3:30 today. He's part of the featured groups. If you're not in the featured group, you still can't be watched, right? You can watch the shots back in the Masters app. That hasn't, like, I remember there was a bit more coverage last year. Was that just because the app got better, or am I completely misremembering?
Was it?
Expect an angry tweet from me at about 5. At peak, why are we watching one feature group? Like, when they're all out there, like McIlroy's last out, but there'll be various people that you really want to see, and TV's not showing them because Augusta said this is how we do things, even though it's 2022. The app, to be fair, is the greatest app in world sport. The app is now at a stage on where as soon as a player hits a shot, it is instantly up on the app
to watch.
Yeah. So you go onto the app, you click on the player, and it just plays each shot one after another. In effect, like, I mean, no sport lends itself more to golfing highlights, to sporting highlights than golf. I mean, I can show you someone's 72 shots in about 95 seconds. So the app is amazing, but, like, it's not the greatest way to watch golf either. But you'll see every single shot you want to see, just not on television. So explain that to me.
Well, like, I mean, it's why it's the greatest television sport there is. Like, people are like, oh, red zone's amazing, but it's like, golf is red zone. It's always been red zone ever since they cracked the code, whenever it was, and actually managed to nail this thing. So Tiger, Westhuizen and Neiman is in that group. Who else are you looking forward to then after 7 when the full coverage actually starts?
Like McIlroy.
Yeah.
You know, the enigma. I don't feel good about his chances this year. I've come into Augusta before thinking that he was in great shape and everything was pointing towards him having a great year, and he just had to handle the pressure. I think this year he still has to handle the pressure, which is enormous, by the way, and it's only ever growing. And as much as he tries to talk that down, you know, this is a really unfair thing for him. But because he won the 3 other majors so early, and 4 in total, this is a brutal way of putting it, and it's not. I don't entirely believe it, because he even said himself this week he's a Hall of Famer. But because he won the other 3 so early, in some respects his career will be a little bit defined by whether he did the Grand Slam or whether he was the kid who had 15, 16, 17 goes at the Grand Slam and didn't. You know, Greg Norman is known every bit as much for his failure at the Masters as he is for his 2 Open wins. And look, McIlroy's fighting that a little bit, I would think, and aware of that. In short, I don't think, this is more of a personal observation than a factual one, I don't think increasingly he's playing his best golf when the pressure comes on. And I think that's getting worse as the years go on. What we can say factually is he's going to have a better putting week than he's liable to have, but his putting has much improved under Brad Faxon. The big issue with McIlroy is his approach to the green work, which is just nowhere near good enough. And he is massively frustrated with this. He's been frustrated with this for a long time. We've seen him break wedges in the last 12 months. And Augusta requires precision. You know, you start with this golf course, you work your way out from the hole itself. You need to be on the right side of the hole. You need to therefore be on the right area of the green. You don't have much to aim at. If the greens are wide, they're not very deep. If they're not very deep, they're wide, but they're not very deep. And his iron play lets him down, like even Texas where he missed the cut. He's air-mailing greens with a wedge. You're dead if you do that in Augusta. So what I fear from McIlroy is we will see birdies for sure, absolutely. But we're going to see too many mistakes. You're going to see him go in a little flurry of birdies here and there, and then you're going to see mistakes, and you'll be saying, "Where did that come from?" And you know, it was interesting. He did a video recently with some podcasters over in the US where he taught them how to hit driver. You know, and it was a tailor-made thing, and he was talking to them about the driver swing and the wedge swing and explaining the differences. And he said, that's why, you know, I've got a really good driver swing, but the wedge swing maybe isn't as good. And he almost caught himself and said, but it's not as bad as people say, you know. And it was almost like this kind of moment of being self-conscious about the things.
Inside his internal monologue. Right.
A little bit, yeah.
Not great when you're standing over the ball and you're like, no, my swing's fine, honestly. Yeah, you believe it. No, if you just believe it, it's going to be fine. Close your eyes.
And I think that's why he went to Pete Cowan a year or so ago. It was to sort out the wedges. And I think that's why they started hitting fades to be more controlled. And it just didn't work. And that's why he was in tears at the Ryder Cup. He said just to Ewan Murray in The Guardian this week, I was in tears because I'd spent a year on this thing and I hadn't got better. You know, like this is the frustration. People say he doesn't work hard enough. I think he does. I think he really is working so hard, and maybe he's not, in a bad mood for 6 months on end because he doesn't win, but I think he cares deeply. How could he not? And it's just not there for him. One last quick point. I watched the players, round one, first hole, he's playing with Morikawa and Justin Thomas, two contemporaries that will be really in the mix this week. They all split the fairway 300 yards. 300 yards, gorgeous, amazing, middle of the fairway. The two of them are within 15 feet, which is where you have to be. And he missed the green, and you just... And you could just, the body language instantly, first hole of the first round of the Sawgrass, there was this sense of, and who knows, look, he is one swing thought away from genius and from swashbuckling and from winning this by 10 shots. That's the hope for me. I think that's how I see him winning if he's going to win. It's either front foot all the way and blows everyone away and doesn't have to worry or think, or he shoots a great round on Sunday and comes from 10 behind somehow with a 62. But I don't see it this year. I hope, but I don't see it.
Okay, what about I Loves Me County? Seamus Power and his talk of playing well in the fall. This is spring, and hopefully he's going to play well.
Everything points to him playing well. Look, it's amazing what's happened here with Power, genuinely. He's gone up 422 places in a year. I think we're all still getting to know him a bit. And just to that end, if you sort of want to be on his side a bit more, Dennis Walsh wrote a fantastic piece in the Sunday Times at the weekend. And this would just give you a sense of how he's made his way in the game. So what Dennis Walsh did, he called Fred Warren, who works for East Tennessee. Fred Warren was over at Portmarnock. He saw Seamus Power. He said, I like the cut of your jib. I'm going to offer you a golf scholarship. And Fred then got an angry phone call from Seamus Power's aunt Alice, who accused him of really messing up potentially with her nephew's education, and you're causing a lot of problems here for the family. So it turns out, as Dennis Walsh writes, Seamus Power was just 8 years old when his mother passed away, which I didn't realise. So Power's mother passed away when he was just 8. He had twin brothers 2 years older than him. So his father, Ned, had a small farm in Dungarvan and took a second job to make ends meet as a welder and worked night shifts. Very difficult for the family. So Aunt Alice helped out with the family and the raising of the children. And, big on education. And so she rings Fred Warren, angry phone call, said, you send me every syllabus, every catalogue you have, send it over right away, let me look through it. And a couple of weeks let go by, and Fred Warren's phone rings, and Aunt Alice says, you have my blessing, you have a beautiful campus. To which Fred says, have you been to our campus? And she says, I have a niece in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I flew over and I drove down to see your university. There's no messing with Aunt Alice is the point of this story, by the way. And Fred Warren speaks of Power's character. He said in 41 years of running the golf program, none of the golf scholarship students ever took accounting. He said, I had a lot of business majors, finance, management. Accounting is much harder. Standard in the school is very high. When Seamus told me he was going to major in accounting, I said, Seamus, that takes a lot of time. It's a really hard major. Seamus Power said to him, I'll be fine. And then Warren says Power was knocking out A's in every semester, graduated with honours. I liked everything about him. He had an independent streak. So
he's the new Harrington, really.
He's total Harrington, yeah. So amazing how he's made his way in the game. And look, what he's done the last 18 months, he's worked with Bob Rotella. He has sorted out a dreadful two-way miss with his driving. And Rory crossed my mind when I read this as well. Apparently he hung out with Zach Johnson to polish up his wedge play as well of late. And all of those things combined with the surgery in his elbow, which was causing him problems. 422 places, to go from stressing about your career and just looking like someone who was going to hang on for a while on the PGA Tour at best and then disappear a little bit, to suddenly be driving down Magnolia Lane, hanging out with Harrington and Lowry and McIlroy and enjoying the whole thing and being very much a part of the tour. It's an amazing story. I think he's probably a pretty special character, and we're getting to know him a little bit more now. So I really hope he goes well.
All right, good stuff, Joe. Enjoy it. Thanks a million.
All right, fellas, thanks.
It's Joe Molloy there giving us his thoughts on the Masters. You can hear more from Golf Weekly. You can subscribe on patreon.com/Golf Weekly. And of course, you can hear Joe from Sunday to Thursday. Our Saturday presenter, John Duggan, is also with us. John?
Ger and Owen, good morning.
What is going on?
Well, it seems like Ten Hag has got the job at Old Trafford, if you go through every back page this morning.
It's funny how it leaked out, isn't it? No big announcement. No, this is our guy. No unveiling. It was like leaked out.
Well, it just shows where Man United have gone in the last 10 years, doesn't it? Not a slickly run organisation, in my view. You look at the way Man City and Liverpool are run as organisations. You go to Old Trafford, it's shabby in comparison to other football stadiums now. The Glazers have not been good for the club. And Erik ten Hag is a very well-regarded coach. I was at the biggest game of his career, Ajax Tottenham Hotspur, and the only criticism he might have is that there is a degree of naivete around the fact that his teams are attack, 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 which has always been the mantra at Old Trafford. So I think this is the big leagues. This is a guy who's worked very well as part of a team at Ajax, won Dutch titles, but at the most resource club in the Netherlands, going into the lion's den of having to deal with Cristiano Ronaldo and Paul Pogba. Now, he might not have to deal with them if both players are gone out of the club, but I think the issues at United are more structural, and I do not have the evidence in my mind that the people making the decisions at Old Trafford in the hierarchy there know what they've been doing in comparison to the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool.
No, it doesn't feel that way, does it?
No.
And so this could be the turning point, or this could be another in a long line of, well, we've thought about this for a little while, let's go with this because it's different from what we had last time.
Well, there's just two things I'm hearing here. Oh, he'll be great with young players. Well, that's fine. Well, then Ronaldo and Pogba surely shouldn't be at the club next year. And secondly, he'll be play attacking football. You're always hearing these things, but you see all the old apparatus beside Klopp and the apparatus of Michael Edwards at Liverpool and the apparatuses around Manchester City, and you just think that Man United are years behind this. Years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We wish him well if he gets the gig, 52 years of age. Pochettino, obviously, there's the buyout clause element of it. But Pochettino's share price maybe has gone down.
I saw somebody saying Manchester United are thinking financially here it would have been 15 million to get Pochettino. It's like $1.5 million to get Ten Hag. But Pochettino's going to get sacked in the summer. You would have got him for nothing. There's definitely, you could have done a deal with PSG where you say, we know you're going to sack him. We'll give you 1 million for it. Do you know, there's a way around that.
Man United can find the money as well. They're
that's
the richest
the other thing.
club
It
in the
doesn't
world.
matter.
Yeah. So they want Ten Hag, obviously. If you're a Chelsea fan or an Everton fan this morning, you're probably got a bit of a sore head. Chelsea, surely the issues off the pitch have seeped into the players in the club. The uncertainty kills business, in my view. You need certainty in business, even if you're a football club with gilded players. And Karim Benzema was fantastic last night in that 3-1 win for Real, who, with Carlo Ancelotti, once again, I'd say he probably had a nice bit of satisfaction around that, given the way he was so badly treated by Chelsea back in 2010.
Italian Big Sam.
Yeah. To be fair, he's got a great agent. Maybe not as good as Jermaine Genius is, but still a good agent. A 3-1 win for Real last night. But Everton, lads, we've talked about it on the show before. I just want to play a bit of Sean Dyche, who dropped the mic in the most spectacular style after the game last night.
The mentality is hard. I've been down there. I know what it's like. Every season's there's been tough patches for us. And sometimes it's hard to explain, but you kind of sense that the team might have lost out to win a game. And I said to them half times, I'm not sure these know how to win a game, lads, away from home particularly. So I said, we've got to play on that. We've got to play on that mentality. We do it by playing forwards. We do it by playing forwards with better quality. And by being more aggressive in our play, if you like. Passing. I don't mean physically, but our passing play and trying to get into the front area of the pitch. It wasn't glorious, by the way, but there was patches and enough patches where we found 3 goals, and I'm pleased with that.
You'd want Bernie to stay up after that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they were 2-1 down.
Yeah.
At half time when he was saying they can't win this game. They don't know how to.
Brilliant stuff. It is great.
It's kind of like Everton and maybe Frank Lampard to an extent have just been at fancy cocktail parties all their life, and now they've gone into this dingy bar, and Dyche is like, welcome to our place now. This is where we're at home. This is our comfort zone. And it's almost like, the air getting thinner the higher you go up the league table. The same almost goes for the further down the league table you go. That Burnley are used to this sort of slog, and Everton potentially aren't. That they would be safe by this time of the season. They wouldn't really care. They'd be mid-table.
Will Lampard be even their own? They've got 9 games left. Do they make a decision now? Because Lampard, every time I hear Lampard, and might be a lovely fellow, whatever. Every time I hear him, it just seems like he's a TV pundit talking about another club. Well, they need to improve. They need to sort themselves out. This has got to be better. You're the manager. I'd love to see what Seamus Coleman. I'd love to see what the dressing room is like at Everton at the moment. It will be the most fascinating find in the world. Talk about Amazon documentaries.
Oh yeah,
they need to do Amazon documentaries about clubs that really struggle.
That would be good. This year would have been amazing.
Yeah, they thought they were onto a winner with Arsenal, and maybe they still will be, but Everton's the one. Maybe Amazon come along and was like, we'll give you 50 million quid if you let us into the dressing room, and they'll be like, well, that'll make up for the losses in the Premier League.
That's too much.
Hundreds of millions.
500 grand.
20 million.
500 grand.
Okay, 500 grand. How much do people pay for these things?
Not much. It can't be that much, can it? I don't know. It's a good question. How much does Spurs make for exposing themselves?
But that was that looks worse with every single day that passes. That was a waste of my life watching that documentary.
What else have you got for us, John?
Well, Nathan Collins, just let you know, scored that first goal for Burnley last night.
The Irish, who is he? The Irish Virgil van Dijk?
Yeah. Have we not handed that moniker out already? No, we've handed Rio Ferdinand out. We haven't handed Virgil van Dijk out.
That was Pat Dolan in the paper last week said he was the Irish Virgil van Dijk.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that was it.
Yeah, 6 defeats and 7 for Everton now. Only a point ahead of Burnley, and Leeds not safe completely yet. And Everton have not been relegated from a top flight since 1951. West Ham, great to see them in Europe at a quarter-final stage against Lyon tonight in the Europa League quarter-final. First leg, Rangers away to Braga. There's under-20 football action in Leinster this evening. Day 1 of Aintree Grand National Meeting. Aintree Hurdle, a feature race there at 3:30. And obviously, as Joe was speaking about there, we're all getting giddy about spending our next 4 days on a couch.
Did you see the clip of Colin O'Neill scoring a goal in a point in injury time?
I did, yeah.
I wouldn't want to watch that as a Clare aficionado.
Clare of the game won in the Gaelic grounds. The 74 minutes are up, basically. 73 minutes of the allotted 74, and the free is from about 35 yards.
It's almost becoming a situation now where I don't know what you do if you're holding onto a lead. You just got to foul in midfield at this point, because you've got the Colin O'Neill goal, you got the late goal to the Sigerson, you've obviously got the Ballygunner, the TJ Reid situation in the All Ireland Club semi-final, all from dead balls.
Yeah. I mean, with Ballygunner, if you pull him down, does he just get up and take the free and score it? I don't know. Like, more people on the actual line and a draft excluder style and a wall. Like, start thinking about these things in a way that isn't, we're just going to have a bunch of people standing in the keeper's way.
Yeah, well, unless you're Colin Fennelly, who walks in the keeper's way very tactically, which is genius as well.
Yeah. Well, that's coming, so you know that's coming.
Yeah.
And then the ball goes out, and they find him in space. It's like, what? It's tricky.
I don't think anybody's going to be easing into this year's All-Ireland Hurling Championship, but Colin O'Neill's definitely not going to be one of those players who's like running on top of the ground right now, so he's going to be one of the most exciting young players to watch in those first couple of weeks of the Championship, I suspect.
All right. For more details, you've got about 2 hours left before you need to get to the bookmakers to follow John Duggan's advice. Where do they get it, John?
OTBsports.com, and on the OTB Sports app, over 2,000 words of prose and hard analysis on the Masters, and hopefully one of the sextet will do something.
And more from John on Saturday afternoon from 1 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk as well. Am I the only one hearing relaxing music in the background? It's fantastic, by the way, says Brown. Brian says, lads, scrap the background music. Sounds like I'm on hold while trying to cancel a movie package that I got during the pandemic, and I still somehow have. Tennis Tank, never use that music again. Had to turn off.
It's not the Jamiroquai music, is it?
No. What is it?
It's the Will O'Callaghan elevator music while he's bringing us up and down the hurling power rankings.
United should not get Poch. He has failed to perform multiple times. What are your thoughts on Scottish and Irish football teams joining the English pyramid? Asks the editor.
Segue.
Well, yeah, it's about an hour long, 2 hour long. No. We're an independent country. No. Bomboy Ireland says, greetings from Abu Dhabi, boys. Looking at 38 degrees today. 38 is just the fringe of acceptable. Any more than that and you're like, no thanks.
What? No way.
What?
Once you're into the 30s, it's absolutely unacceptable. Late 20s is absolute hard limit.
You don't notice that much of a difference between 32 and 38.
Oh, really?
No.
Tell us more about your luxurious lifestyle in the Middle East.
Your feet burn. Well, I mean, it gets hot other places, like Spain. Been to Spain. It's like you can get an airplane and you can fly to Spain. It's not that big a deal. Sometimes it hits like mid-30s over there. Okay. Dory the Explorer says, morning lads, if you have a dog on screen, I might actually listen to the sports I don't like at normal speed or without skipping. And so, yes, we are going to make that a thing. Any of our more niche, like whatever it is, Dora, that you thought was, niche about the hurling power rankings.
We're just going to have a cute cat on screen for the crappy quiz every week.
Are there such things as cute cats?
Yes.
Are all cats not kind of just cat-like?
There's extremely cute cats, and the majority of them are.
Owen's a cat man, it turns out. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Right, here's a special report from Ardoyne from Owen's trip to Belfast. Enjoy.
OTB AM.
We always say here at Ardoyne GAC, you know, we like to consider ourselves to be the heart of our community. That's on our mural at the end of Flack Street. We like to say that we don't take that for granted, that we keep giving back.
I think you notice, especially with this club, but all GA clubs in Ireland, they're always one of the first organisations to step forward to help the community that they are part of. We are only part of the community. We aren't the community, but we play a vital role in that community. As you know, Ardoyne itself is an area that has suffered greatly throughout the conflict, and in more recent times, high levels of poverty and whatever. And the GA isn't immune to that. I mean, our members come from this community, and this club especially. We have had several members who were murdered during the conflict. So even though we were part of the community, we weren't immune to what was going on around us. And this club played a vital role in supporting our community through that conflict. And then, as I said, in more recent times.
I'm standing here in Etna Drive, and this is a sort of a plaque in memory of a young member from our club called Seamus Morris. Seamus was only 18 and he played for our under-18 football team. A fantastic young player, a fantastic young person, well liked. Seamus was sitting on his wall again, talking to friends in his own street, just this street here. I think it's Haybury Gardens. And what happened was a car pulled around a corner and it had loyalist gunmen in. And these loyalist gunmen got out of the car, seen this group of young people, and they fired into the group of young people, killing Seamus. And Seamus died. And every year, our club members come round and they'll put wee flowers here just to remember Seamus and his family. And then we have Peter Dolan, and Peter actually was shot dead on the same day because Peter seen what was happening. Peter was driving a lorry at the time, and he tried to block the escape of the gunmen, and they got out and shot him dead as he sat in his lorry. So this is just in memory of young Seamus here, an Ardoyne Kickham's member.
When I grew up, again, back in troubled times, and I know my own mother and family tried to do their best to keep me away from and keep me out and sheltered from any trouble that was going on. But I do personally feel I was robbed of a little bit of my Irishness and my culture. My father had been put out of his own business on the Crumlin Road when the trouble started in the early days. We lived still in North Belfast, but we lived outside of the district. It was a very dangerous place to be. Involvement with the GAA in itself was dangerous to be involved and to be mentioned.
When I was walking around this area when I was young, so you would be stopped by British soldiers and this constant thing about being British, and this was my identity. This is who I was, and this was important to me to say who I was. When we get into the bus, and you have to remember, when we were playing under 16, for instance, our bus was known, and as I say, we didn't have a home pitch. And so if we would have travelled outside the area, the first thing we all knew in that bus, the driver, all the teammates, is that we were going to get stopped. And it didn't matter whether it was the under 16 team, the under 18 team, or the senior or junior teams, everybody gets stopped. We would have got stopped by the UDR, by the British Army, and sometimes we made it get stopped 4 or 5 times before we even got to the pitch. That was a reality in which we lived. We have lost, since that time, through the conflict, our club have lost a full team through sectarian murder. That's what's happened to us. And we also have lost people who have went to jail. So we'd lost a big part of that. Our club had been raided. Our bus had been stopped. And throughout all those times, we're still here.
I think at the last count, and that was before the Camogie started up again, we had 21 teams out there. If we need to have another 19 teams on the go, well then we'll work out how we'll get that going and how we'll resource it. But it's bring it on as our attitude first, and we'll work out what to do after that.
One of our big problems on here is that we have a pitch, but it's council owned, and so we have to find something like £30,000 every year just to pay for the use of that pitch. Now that pitch can be used by other sporting activities, so it can be used by soccer, but we have first preference. But there's 26 dedicated soccer pitches in North Belfast, but there is no dedicated GAA pitch, none. But if you look throughout Ardoyne, it's just all streets, and the old park's the same. It's all streets. There isn't really any play facilities. There's no real green areas there for young people to run about or to do anything. This area here, or this club, takes young people in, gives them a self-respect for themselves, an identity, and encourages them to make the right choices in life.
We are stronger now, I'd say, than we have ever been in our history. For the first time in a long time, we now provide all the sports, all the GAA sports, for all codes and all ages. And as a club, we're only getting stronger. Our membership is growing year on year.
I certainly have memories of Casement Park and up there, watching the county matches and watching our own club play there at different finals, etc. I think for GAA as a whole, and certainly for clubs like ourselves stuck in the middle of areas like this in not just North Belfast, but all over Belfast, our biggest competitor is soccer. And the reason why I believe the reason why it wins every time is because soccer is promoted, and is promoted by all the excellent stadiums that there are throughout Belfast and the province as a whole and the country as a whole, and we in GAA don't have that.
Casement will be the catalyst for the GAA in Antrim. Antrim is Ireland's second biggest city. It should be the heartbeat of the GAA in Ireland, and it has so much untapped potential that it's unreal. And Casement will be the shining light of that. It will be a modern provisional stadium. Antrim Gaels will get use out of it, but Ulster Gaels will get use out of it, and it'll be useful for Gaels all across Ireland. And what it will do is it'll give young people an aspiration. They will see a massive state-of-the-art stadium in their own county, which they can dream of playing in.
It has definitely become symbolic for the people of Belfast who are interested in GAA, the stadium issue. And, you know, sometimes these things end up not delivering on the promise because it's just a stadium, right? But it has become a symbol of so much more, and that to get it built will require the community coming together and understanding what the issues that the residents have and negotiating with them, and maybe showing a pathway to better communication and how to better ingrain yourself in parts of your own community, because they should be able to make friends with the people of West Belfast to build the stadium, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been able to do that.
No, and it feels that there's probably maybe regrets on every side here about how things have gone over the last little while, especially from the very first situation when it first got planning permission and first got rejected essentially as a result of residents protesting against it. But what is interesting, I think, like often we have conversations around these big stadiums and, you know, what will it do for the community? I do think the GAA by and large has done okay when it's had these big grounds built to redevelop, that it is a facility for schools finals, club finals, all that sort of thing.
You'd have to question the amount of white elephant stadiums that are never used or not busy during the year, right, around the country. Like, is the Gaelic grounds full as often as it should be? Is Páirc Uí Chaoimh often? Like the women's teams had barely played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So I'm not sure that we've got a great track record of building stadiums that are actually going to be used by the communities and properly embedded.
Yeah. There does seem to be a real sense of optimism within the people within Belfast and the people that I was speaking to. This would be an asset, not an asset that's sweated, but something that's used by, as I say, schools finals, whatever, county finals, and not even that every young football, hurling, camogie player within Belfast would have an opportunity to play there at some point. Like, are the other stadiums being utilised like that? The two you mentioned, for example, I'd like to think that they are. Now, are they being used properly for commercial reasons is an entirely different thing, or are they actually having enough big games there? Because are there enough big games in the Gaelic Games calendar? I think that's actually a separate conversation. So, as we've seen from Cork this year, they're clearly not getting enough big games there. They do need the concerts to try and pay back their level of debt that they have, but I guess that's an extraordinary level and something entirely different. But at the same time, costs have risen on Casement over the last little while as well. This thing is a more expensive project. Who's going to pay for the rising costs?
The British government can pick it up, right? Come on.
If this residents' appeal is turned down and then it does get to go ahead this year, like the DUP I know have said that the GAA should come up with the extra money for it, for example.
Well, somebody should pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, they should be able to work that out. Again, that's negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it gets to that point. That would be a
got
good
to
problem
the
to have.
DUP. Don't fancy the, you know, it's always tricky, but like they can always go over their heads. I mean, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It may be an easier negotiation after May when we see what happens in that election. But yeah, it's a very interesting time. There's no sense anyway that this is unimportant. It's kind of a vital part of the jigsaw for Antrim GA and for Ulster GA as a whole, I think, from what we've heard.
Owen says, my two favourite Munster games this season were Scarlet. We beat them 43-13 away from home with the youngsters, and Scarlet's playing the big guns, and Wasps. We all know about that. That was obviously when the kids played in that one as well. Both with players relatively untouched by Van Graan and Larkham. The talent is there, the passion is there. They've been let down by their conservative senior coaches playing the wrong style for the players at their disposal. Usual square peg, round hole type scenario. On a final sad note, it's over a 2-hour drive to Limerick. Why would I drive up there with my kids to watch a boring grind? It's a very good question. Like, this is entertainment, but the thing that Munster have is that it's more than just entertainment. It is actually like an expression of personality and identity, and that's why rugby in Munster had such a head start in the professional era, because there was such a strong connection, and that's why it was such a horrible place to go for visiting teams. And a lot of that is dissipating, and it's dissipating quickly because people don't see themselves reflected in what's happening on the pitch enough.
It definitely seems that way. Like, I mean, if Owen is saying there that the style of play and the grind that it is, to put it in his words, is that if that's actually affecting his kind of appetite to go and see the team, I'd say he's far from the only one who's thinking that way. Like, you do want to be entertained to a point, but winning is all important. If the team is winning and they're grinding out wins and they're playing a kind of a less attractive style of rugby but still winning games, I'd suspect that it would have been much harder to get a ticket last weekend, for example. Like, I mean, obviously we had Keane Tracy in yesterday who's just kind of comparing it chalk and cheese to the old days when Thomond Park used to be full. Of course, the redevelopment changes things when you're naturally going to have more seats available, and as a result more empty seats for some of the smaller games. But Leinster Munster should be a sellout a week in advance.
Yeah,
at least.
Porrick says, if Klopp never went to Liverpool, would we be talking about how great the club was run? Klopp changed everything. He did change a lot, but their recruitment and their smart in the transfer market also helped. So it was a combination of factors, and the important thing is that the hierarchy picked him. When he was available, they went and got him. So I'm looking here at the contenders that the BBC listed the morning that Brendan Rodgers was sacked. Klinsmann, Mazzari, Frank de Boer, Carlo Ancelotti and Jurgen Klopp. But it was clear from early that they wanted one man, and they went and got him because he was available.
Wow. Imagine the alternative universe of any of those appointments. Walter Mazzari was on that list.
Yeah, Inter manager at the time.
Yeah.
Former Inter at that stage. He'd been... I think that was like probably these were the people that the bookmakers were trying to entice you to put some money on for the next manager, because, you know, that's what so yeah. No, I'm just reading about it there. Yeah, like in fairness, the recruitment wasn't great under Brendan Rodgers. Benteke, Danny Ings, Firmino, Nathaniel Klein and Joe Gomez. I'd say on balance
it was getting better at that stage. Yeah. Like I think that probably suggests that there was a turning of the corner before Jurgen Klopp.
Wasn't Ings free? Was he free, or was he like next to nothing?
I can't remember, but you did have the title tilt under Rodgers as well, which definitely suggested that this was a team that was at least capable of going places, and there was a good bedrock there before Klopp. No question about it, Klopp was the most important part of the whole piece and has taken them to a new level, and those other managers there wouldn't have been able to do what Klopp has done. But the club had seemingly got its act together. Like, we went through some of Roy Hodgson's signings, I think the summer of 2012, last Friday on the show, and it was just absolutely appalling. And like, they managed to go from appalling recruitment to good recruitment, I would say, around Brendan Rodgers' time, to outstanding recruitment right now. Like, there has to be a little bit of a drop off. You just can't predict the future, so they're going to get a few of those wrong, but they're on a hot streak right now, the people who are making those decisions.
Brendan Rodgers getting sacked is, of course, the Thierry Henry hand on Jamie Carragher's thigh meme. That was when that came into existence. So
was it the same hand?
His right hand, was it?
Yeah, no, it was his left hand, wasn't it? Both hands are famous.
We're going to be back in just a moment's time. It's 9:08 this morning. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio between now and 7 o'clock this evening. OTB Gold is Declan Murphy, jockey. His story of a serious brain injury. Leaders' questions at 3 o'clock with Stuart Lancaster. 4 o'clock live, the Six Nations show ahead of the game this weekend. Brian O'Driscoll's in for that. OTB Gold is Jerry Eisenberg talking about Muhammad Ali in the show with Nathan and John Giles tonight from 7 o'clock. Great report as always, lads, says Kieran. Brilliant to see Eoin covering the different backgrounds of the country and their GAA traditions within the communities. Very interesting stuff indeed, and we'll have plenty more of that coming your way over the next while as well. Now, ahead of Ireland taking on Sweden next Tuesday, Eoin got the chance to catch up with Heather Payne. We'll be joined by Phil Egan to react to last night's football next as well.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Yeah, look, a lot has to go right for Munster to win.
Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs are joining forces to bring you all the latest analysis, news, interviews and so much more.
I think the Munster fans are craving for a Munster win. There's more to this game, Niamh. This Munster-Leinster is different.
It's almost like a European Cup game.
It's nearly bigger at times. The rivalry is massive.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
I just want to run something by you after the Finland game. You've been asked about this before, the Niamh Fahy quote, half horse, half woman. How many times have you been reminded of that quote since the Finland game?
Yeah, it's definitely come up now in a few interviews. Of course, that's Niamh Fahy. She's funny, but it's just a bit of humour. I guess I don't even have any opinions on it. I don't know. I've just kind of gone along with it.
It feels like the Finland game is a really, really important staging point in your career. It felt like the night that people were like, okay, this is somebody who can really affect the game, is one of our best players. Is that something that you felt on the night? Was that like a really big confidence boost for you?
I think just the whole win and the whole game, I think, was just a big confidence boost for the whole team. I think when we got that second goal, and I think it was a real battle till the end. You know, we were all probably exhausted. You could see from defending the 2-1 lead. So I think personally, yeah, I think it kind of gave me confidence to go on if I saw what I could do in that game, and it's given me more confidence now for the upcoming games.
Because it was late in the game when you really started to affect it down that right flank in particular, and obviously the assist for the goal. What's that down to? Is that just pure fitness affecting a game late on, or why did you come to fruition in the closing stages of that game in particular?
I think I've always had like a good fitness and good stamina, so I think that obviously plays a part, but I think it was also just the drive to keep going and to, you know, secure the win. And I think that opportunity came to me to keep going. And, you know, we were under pressure in our own box for a while. So then I think it was, you know, try run with the ball, try get it as far up the field as I can, and hopefully give the team like a breather. But yeah, I think it was just the whole game was such an adrenaline rush, and I think at that moment I had such an adrenaline rush, so I just had to keep going and, you know, like I said, give the team a breather.
Does that actually make you forget completely about how exhausted you are if you have that adrenaline rush?
Yeah, definitely. I think, of course, after probably making the run, I probably felt exhausted, but I think once you're on the ball and things are going well, I think you completely forget that, you know, you've been playing nearly 90 minutes, and I think, like I said, fitness and stamina also helps with that aspect.
Are you still travelling over from the States?
Yeah, so I just arrived yesterday. I'm still travelling from Florida State. I'm in college now. I'm there for another year.
Because Denise was saying that she's got the jet lag down to a T, that she was up at 9 a.m. this morning, no bother to her. Are you the same, or do you struggle with that a little bit?
Unfortunately, I'm not the same now. I've been there 3 years, so you think I'd have it down yet, but somehow I still am affected. I don't sleep too well on the plane. I think that's the problem for me. But I think I'm getting better and better. Unfortunately, woke up at 5 a.m. this morning, but hopefully by a couple of days I'll be fine again. It usually takes me 2 or 3 days, and then I'm raring to go.
What is the setup like at Florida State?
It's good. We're #1 college now in the States, and we have a great coach and great background staff, and we've such a diverse team that they come from all over the world, which I think makes a great setup and a great team. So I think it's a really good setup. I'm so happy that where I am in Florida State. I think I couldn't be at a better college. And of course, to get my education at the same time is also great.
How much of a decision was it for you to go there? Was it a no-brainer, or were you thinking to yourself, let's edge towards a professional contract sooner rather than later?
At the moment I was in Bristol, or when I was making the decision, I was in Bristol, and I really wanted to get my education. That was like one of my main focuses, as well as playing at a high level. So the decision was it was kind of like a last minute decision, if I'm being honest. It took me a while to really think about things, but in the end I think I made the right decision because, like I said, Florida State is number one over there, so I'm getting my education at the same time, as well as playing at a really high standard.
And what are you majoring in education-wise?
Dietetics, so it's nutrition and stuff like that. I think once I finish, I hope to play professionally once I finish in college, and then hopefully once I finish my professional career, I think I'd like to go into sports nutrition and be a sports dietitian.
All right, pretty useful for a career as a sports person as well. It's Heather Payne in conversation with Eoin a little bit earlier in the week, and obviously we'll be bringing that game live between Sweden and the Republic of Ireland next Tuesday. It'll be live on OTB Sports Radio, and kick off 5:30. Coverage starts around 5. Now, Phil Egan is with us. Phil, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
You flagged it last night, yesterday on the show, that the big game wasn't in the Champions League, although they were two pretty interesting results in and of themselves. But that actually the relegation battle was where the hot football action was last night. You were correct.
It's the tension of a relegation scrap. Just so much on the line, and Frank Lampard and Everton are in serious trouble. And I listened to Lampard before the game talking about the pressure, and he said, as a player I relished the pressure, the big games. Like, there was a difference though, Frank. You were playing at the top end of the table with Chelsea, where you were maybe going for a league title, or you were in the latter stages of the Champions League. Relegation scraps are completely different. I think the person to listen to on this is someone like John O'Shea, who obviously won league titles and a Champions League with Manchester United, but he was involved in relegation scraps with Sunderland. And I remember he did an interview with us on Premier League Live after Sunderland had just stayed up with Big Sam, and he just talked about the relief going into the club the next day, looking at all the people around the club who you become so friendly with, knowing that because you've held on to your Premier League status, these people will be kept in the job. Whereas you go to the Championship, obviously we've seen what's happened to Sunderland since they're down in League One now. These people then, there has to be cutbacks because you can't keep the same budget for a Championship club or for a League One club, and it's just a horrible feeling. And Everton are stuck in that right now, that the thoughts of relegation could absolutely ruin Everton. And watching the game last night, they were 2-1 up at half-time. There was spells in the second half where they were on top and you thought, yeah, they're the better team here. But Sean Dyche hit the nail on the head when he was asked after the game, what did you say to your players at half-time? And he said, I don't think Everton know how to win a game, especially away from home. And they did everything but win that game last night. And not only did they not even get a draw, they transpired to lose a game that they shouldn't have lost. And that's become a habit for them now. And you're looking at their fixtures. I know one or two wins can change everything. And we could be here in 3 weeks saying, yeah, fair play to Lampard, he steered them clear of the relegation zone. But right now, the pressure these players are under, and they're playing Manchester United at 12:30 on Saturday. We don't know what United are going to turn up. I've always said if Everton are going to stay up, it's their home form. The Everton fans obviously will be up for this. They're not going to turn on the team because they know the stakes are too high.
Yeah, I think if we're sitting here in a few weeks' time and saying fair play to Frank Lampard, that would be extraordinary, because as you say, it's the standard of team that they'll have to beat. That Manchester United this weekend almost takes on a very, very important feel to it, because obviously you've got the Merseyside derby in a couple of weeks, which is at Anfield, and Leicester and Chelsea in that mix as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 games against Leicester as well. It's just looking at the fixtures of the teams around them as well. There's a few teams that have, say for example, Burnley have 2 games against Villa to come as well. I'm kind of looking from Leeds down. I think Leeds were disappointed with that result last night, because looking at the table now, Leeds are on 30 points, 31 games. Burnley were on 21 points going into that game last night, so Leeds were 8 points clear of the relegation zone. Now they're only 6, but Leeds have Watford this weekend, which is a massive game. Watford have to play all the teams around them. Now, those games are at Vicarage Road where Watford can't win a game. But if Roy Hodgson can fix that, starting with this weekend, then, Watford still have to play Burnley and Everton. They do have a few tough games to go. They go to City. They play Chelsea in the final day as well. But Leeds would be starting
Chelsea
to sweat.
on the final day could be easy.
It could be, yeah.
That final few round of games, like if the league is already done, or if say Man City are out of the league and in a Champions League final, and they're resting players, they're still resting, they're still playing world class players who are playing, but you can't pencil in automatic wins for the top teams against the bottom teams for the last 3 games of the year, because other priorities might happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
like when Jack Grealish saved Villa, their fixture list looked horrific.
Yeah,
and that's won the last 5 games of the season because it mattered to them and it didn't matter to others.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there is the teams that are on the beach. I mean, it is a thing where teams are already thinking ahead and players are looking forward to their holidays now. They don't have a major tournament to be thinking about in the same way that they would usually, because obviously the World Cup doesn't start until November. But
can I ask, Phil, sorry to interrupt, is there a team in recent memory that has gone a longer period of time without the last few games mattering than Everton? It feels like Everton are the one team, the one constant throughout the entire Premier League era where they could be on the beach for the last 5 games because they've got nothing to play for. They've never challenged for a title. They maybe if you talk about 2006 direction, when they're 2005 when they were pushing for the Champions League spots, they didn't battle for relegation. Granted, this is just the club's history, not the players' history.
In the 90s, they were definitely relegation threatened, like famously last second.
Okay, well that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I do not remember that. Like it's you could almost pin your hat on Everton being
Farley saved them, didn't
he? Scored in
of course.
Yeah, Bolton lost that day as well. Then you have the Barry Horn. The
Everton are the
game.
team you want to be playing late on in the season. Like, I know it doesn't matter too much considering there's a massive turnover of players, but Burnley, as we saw last night, are used to this. They're used to the slog. Villa used to fighting for stuff at the end of the season. They got relegated, had to come back up. Are Everton ready for this? Are they ready for the fact that these matches all matter so much to the future of their club?
Yeah, and that is my concern for them, that these players aren't used to a relegation scrap. I think watching the game last night, if one player epitomised what it is to be in a relegation scrap, it was James Tarkowski, a player that has actually been linked with Everton in the past, but just putting in blocks. There was one stage when Anthony Gordon went through in the second half and fired a shot that looked like it had Pope in trouble, and Tarkowski blocked it and it went out for a corner. And he was immense, and Nathan Collins was in beside him scoring his first goal in the Premier League. What a time to do so. But it was just the fact that Burnley scoring 3 goals. Burnley don't score 3 goals many times in a game or in a season, and Everton are just a shambles at the back. And this was the concern when Lampard came in, that the track record when he was at Derby, when he was at Chelsea, was defensively you were never fully convinced with him, and
everybody kept making individual errors, and he could never seem to fix or put his finger on why that happened.
And defending is a collective. That's because if you set a team up right, individual errors mightn't cost you because you have such a strong defensive unit that there's somebody else that knows that if somebody makes a mistake, I'll be there to pick up the slack. So say, for example, Nathan Collins made a mistake last night and his teammates got him out of it. These things happen. Professional footballers make mistakes, but if your team is there for you to get you out of trouble, then that's always a good sign. But right now, Everton are conceding goals. I don't know. It's hard to know what United team turn up on Saturday. I mean, they are not necessarily out of the race for the top 4, given what happened at Sellers Park. The door is still slightly open. So
does the fact that the new manager's name is leaked out help in a way that, like, now we know who we're trying to impress, and there's a bit of certainty back?
Big time. I mean, they're thinking, right, we're playing for our futures here now. This United squad have shown in the last few seasons, if anyone's going to let you down, it's them. But Everton, it's just the tension that if Everton concede first, then the worry is, can they turn it around? And they need games where it stays 0-0 or they score first. You think back to the Newcastle game where they stuck in there, they got a player sent off and you feared the worst, but they still dug it out. But right now it's looking pretty grim for Everton. And I said, what that could do to the club if they get relegated. And if they lose to United at the weekend, you start to think, will they pull the plug on Lampard?
Is that what you would do?
Well, like, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. So would Duncan Ferguson do any worse? But, you know, are Everton thinking...
What was his record when he was in charge? Better than losing 6 out of 7, I suspect.
Well, I mean, look, you think back to the
a while ago, though.
He took charge. He's had a few stints.
4 matches, 2 draws, 1 loss, 4 goals for, 1 goal against.
Yeah, they lost that game against Villa, and you know, it wasn't a great game. It was quite a tight game, but that's the way Everton have to approach games. They can't be conceding 3 goals. They can't be cavalier the way they were at times last night, where you know they're going in search of a third goal, but then they leave themselves open, and it's naive. And you know, the teams that are used to scrapping down at the bottom know how to grind out results, and Burnley managed it. Now we have to see if Watford can do it. If Watford can get their act together, then Everton are in even more trouble, because you just kind of feel that Burnley are up for this now. This is what Burnley have been doing. They keep getting written off, and you kind of think eventually they're going to get caught. I did pick them at the start of the season. I went Norwich, Watford, Burnley. As of now, I'm sticking with that, but that can change in the space of a game.
It's changing before your eyes at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. You know, last night was like a massive moment in the whole thing. And like, look, Everton being forced to re-examine who they are, what their identity is, what they mean. Is that new stadium beside the water as the sea level rises? Is that a good idea? I'm not sure. So we'll see. But yeah, look, he picked an interesting team last night, and they let him down, even with 2 penalties, even when everything is going their way.
That's it, and he did talk about it. You know, the game last weekend, and saying, you know, you need a bit of luck after the West Ham game. He said, and they got the bit of luck that they needed, where they got the 2 penalties. You're 2-1 up at half time against a team that are not very prolific, and they still managed to lose 3-2. So the pressure is on. But I said, I find the relegation scrap is so fascinating, because it is survival. And
good that they had Dele Alli to call on last night as well in a moment of crisis. He's what you want in the trenches.
If anyone's going to get them out of trouble, it's going to be Richarlison.
Yeah, I think Richarlison played pretty well last night. And again, I said earlier, I literally was watching the highlights, but everything good that they were doing, and you know, there was
a great chance, you know, to put them 3-1 up, and he had an overhead saved as well. But I think if they're going to stay up, it's him.
I'd be happy if he was at Villa next season and Everton were in the Championship. Villarreal's result last night, where they beat Bayern Munich by 1-0, probably not as heavily trumpeted just yet as it might be, because it's the first leg, and we've seen Bayern come from behind in situations like this before. They had a number of chances to make it 2, to double their lead, to really put some massive doubt in Bayern's mind. But then you look at the Bayern team, and they're kind of old.
Yeah, like, I mean, the thing here is that Unai Emery is the kryptonite for Bayern Munich. Dermot Corrigan had the statistic that they'd gone 25 away Champions League games unbeaten all the way back to September 2017, when they were beaten 3-0 by Paris Saint-Germain, managed by Unai Emery. So I think this has been one of definitely an element of the narrative around him in the aftermath of last season, when he'd got them to the Europa League glory, that Arsenal had a good manager in their hands in Unai Emery, and maybe the situation was such a basket case that didn't allow him to do so well. But the big thing from last night was the hallmarks of like sitting down watching Match of the Day, and at around 11:20 you'd hear Dan Juma's name come on in the second last game of Match of the Day. Kind of like a Serge Gnabry graph. Not as dramatic, Phil, but kind of reminds me of it. The sort of, oh yeah, remember him playing in the Championship last season, playing well in the Championship, and now beating Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Yeah, and look at some of the players, because the problem with some of the stories about football nowadays, if a player or a manager, because Emery, let's be honest, people will say it didn't work at Arsenal, but if a player or a manager doesn't succeed in the Premier League, it's almost like they're written off. I saw an article yesterday, I'm not going to say who published it, but it was in relation to Gonzalo Higuain, right? A guy that's won league titles with Real Madrid, banged in goals for Napoli. And it was, you know, the headline for the article was Chelsea flop, Gonzalo Higuain, about his future. You know, there's talk that he's going to retire at the end of the MLS season. And I just thought, like,
this is a guy that has played in World Cup finals. He's scored goals at the highest level, at club level, and some people would actually view him as a Chelsea flop, even though his career outside the Premier League was exceptional. And you look at the team that Villarreal had last night. Juan Foyth was playing. You mentioned Danjuma, obviously playing in the Championship. You had Etienne Capoue, you had Lo Celso. You have guys like this that some of them would be considered as Premier League flops. And here they are, one win away from reaching the Champions League semi-finals and dumping out one of Europe's top clubs. Now, look, we'll see what happens in the second leg. Salzburg also should have beaten Bayern Munich in the first leg. And then they got
spanked, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Villarreal are better than Salzburg. They're well set up.
I think that there was definitely some early refereeing decisions that went Bayern's way in the second leg with a bunch of, did they have 2 or 3 penalties in the first 5 minutes?
Yeah, Lewandowski was scored a fairly early hat-trick. But Emery is a good manager. And just because it didn't work out for him at Arsenal doesn't mean...
He's an Arsenal flop forever.
That's it.
And that's the thing, but
good evening. We'll never people started picking up on the accent because he wasn't good at managing, whereas that would have become an endearing feature. Whereas was he good at football management in that period of time?
There was moments. You think of the time they beat Spurs in the derby, and they were really on it that day, and people thought, this guy's going to turn it around. But you see how quickly things can go, and then people start questioning it. So we've just been talking about Everton, and we're probably are we going to see the same when Ten Hag takes over at Manchester United, where if things don't start well, then you start seeing the leaks, or the so-called leaks, where Manchester United players question some of the training methods of Eric Ten Hag. That's just unfortunately the way management goes, whereas we know Ten Hag is a really good coach, but sometimes it's not that simple that good coach goes into club, makes them better, because you have to look at the structures around them.
That was the comparison with Klopp a little bit earlier on. Somebody saying Liverpool got a bit lucky when they got Klopp, but actually, just doing a quick bit of reading earlier on, in the aftermath of that tweet, they had searched out and hunted Klopp down. He was. They had arranged this meeting in New York with him, where Klopp had gone with a dossier and said, "This is how I'm going to transform the club and all your relationships with the media and with everybody." It was basically like the next step on from Brendan Rodgers. But the thing about it was that the owners of that club were fully invested in making Liverpool as successful as possible, and their blueprint for it was a blueprint that was based on what they did with the Red Sox, which was fixing the stadium, leaning into the history of the club, making sure that the best people were in charge of recruitment and training/coaching. And that's a model that works. What is the Manchester United Glazers model? They've been successful in Tampa because they got Tom Brady.
It seems slightly similar to their strategy at the end of last season in the transfer window.
Yeah, absolutely. The shiny signing in a transfer window, which gets people excited, whereas often those less spectacular signings are the ones that work out. And you think of when Klopp took over Liverpool, you look at the squad that he inherited, but there was plenty of slip-ups along the way where, I can remember them losing 2-0 away to Hull, and people were going, is this guy really going to be able to turn around at Liverpool? But Klopp had the history of work at Dortmund to be able to say, trust me. And he said it in his first press conference, that maybe in 4 years we're talking about winning titles. And lo and behold, 4 years later they're champions of Europe. So it does take time, but unfortunately with Manchester United, managers are not getting time. And one thing that doesn't help as well is the outside noise of past players, where they think they know best, whereas they don't necessarily know best, but they're because they're big names, they're always going to get plenty of clicks and hits, and people want to hear what they say. And Manchester United, being such a global club and a huge club, will always have interest. Even if they were down at the bottom end of the Premier League, people would still be talking about them. So it's a really tough job that Eric Ten Hag has ahead of him.
I think he's probably the best candidate from that list available at the moment.
When you're saying that Poch isn't available, basically.
Well, the Poch is available. I actually think that Ten Hag is a better bet than Pochettino in that, like, things had gone stale at Spurs and they fluked their way to the Champions League final. And, like, the job at PSG has been grand. He's not he hasn't reached the level of those managers who were on that carousel where he is super successful and he's won leagues everywhere he's gone. Like, for all my slagging off Carlo Ancelotti, the guy was successful, like, everywhere he went.
Yeah, you could say there was a Ten Hag versus Poch showdown in 2019, and who fluked it out on that? Do you want to?
But a vastly higher wage bill than he had at Spurs than they had at Ajax.
Like, you'd have to say that, like, Ajax getting to the semi-final of the Champions League is on a par with Spurs getting to the final of the Champions League that season. Certainly from the
I would have said it was ahead of it, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the budgets and the way Ajax played, and I think as well, what you look for when a new manager comes in is you want to be able to look at the way the team play and know exactly what they're about. And what always helps, you've seen this with Conte coming in at Spurs, when you get like a signature win where you see, that can happen more often down the line. So you think of what Spurs did away to City. That was classic Conte. And it mightn't happen next season at City, but it could happen in big games. Like, say, for example, they go to Anfield this season and they do something similar, where you think, right, if he does this more often, then we become more successful.
And do you know what? There was actually the bones of something like that emerging, which was a counter-attacking style under Solskjaer, but then they ended up signing, if you think back, the signing Ronaldo completely derailed any sense of what identity was beginning to emerge under Solskjaer, and that was the end of that. It could not survive that because he wanted to be a counter-attacking team that hit you on the break, and it worked relatively well for him in big games over recent seasons. And I don't know, it was always fated to fail because he wasn't good enough. But
well, it was amazing that you had Solskjaer and this counter-attacking team, and you thought there's a few missing parts. You need a centre midfielder. Then Sancho was coming in, and you thought, they need another centre half. So they got Varane. They didn't get the central midfielder that they need. They got Sancho, but then obviously when Ronaldo was signed, it changed everything. You think back to the first weekend of the season. I know United have Leeds do concede goals, but they absolutely tore them apart on the break. And it was the classic way United were successful under Solskjaer, where they sat in and just broke at pace. And Bruno Fernandes and Pogba were exceptional that day. And there was a real good buzz about it. Varane was obviously unveiled that day, and it was like, this is, maybe. And then Ronaldo signed, and it was like, this is getting even better. But as it transpired, Ronaldo, his numbers might look all right, but it's inhibited the way the team has tried to move forward, and obviously Solskjaer paid the price for that, and it's been really bad. But look at how bad it's been for United this season, and they're still not that far off top four. So that's one of the positives. If you're a United fan, you would say it really doesn't take that much to get back on track.
There's always a couple of clubs who are having a terrible season, and so therefore you should be able to qualify. And actually they're going to qualify for the Champions League automatically from now on anyway, when the new rules get in. So it's a good time to be becoming the Manchester United manager. Expectations are low. They won't be in next season, but they will be in the season after that and forevermore, because they're one of the biggest clubs. Right, we got to go. 9:37 this morning. Phil, thanks very much for that. A reminder, OTB AM is live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We have a very busy programme for you tomorrow. Is there a quiz? I don't know.
There's a special quiz tomorrow. It is Nathan Murphy versus John Duggan versus Joe Molloy, and a tradition as old as time.
Is there a green jacket?
We should get a green jacket. Can we get one of those sorted before tomorrow?
Sure,
I'm saying that as if anybody other than myself will have to organise that.
So there will be no green jacket tomorrow. There will be a metaphorical green jacket. Yes. So obviously, talking the Masters, Ronan O'Gara is going to join us. Quiet week for Raj. Not much going on for us to chat to him about. Not the England job, not the fine for stuff that happened like a couple of weeks ago, and then potentially the fallout from what happened last week. And then the fact that they're playing the same team again. So I'm looking forward to that. Right now, though, here is Simon Cooper on the Football Show about Ten Hag.
Burnley 3, Everton 2 at Turf Moor for Frank Lampard in his 9 Premier League games now. It's a 7th defeat. And it means Burnley have really closed the gap on Everton. They are within a point. Same number of games played,
Burnley in 18th in the highest of those relegation places, and Everton just outside the relegation spots. 25 points to Burnley's 24, same number of games played. I think we're officially saying it's full-blown crisis at Everton. 7 defeats in his 9 Premier League games for Frank Lampard. Meanwhile, Stamford Bridge, Chelsea 1, Real Madrid 3, and Villarreal are 1-0 up against Bayern Munich. In the game at Stamford Bridge, 2 glorious Karim Benzema goals, 2 great headers, and then Mendy mess-up, catastrophe, first minute of the second half, square pass to Rudiger, and it was completely scuffed, and Benzema said, well, thanks very much, I've already scored 2 great goals, I might as well score a tap-in. And so Real Madrid are 3-1 up at Stamford Bridge with 15 minutes to go. Simon Cooper joins us on the line. Evening, Simon.
Good evening.
Mendy and his square passes. What was it your hero Cruyff said about square passes?
Never give a square pass, because if it's intercepted, 2 players are knocked out, you and the guy you were passing to.
Yeah, he wouldn't have liked Mendy this evening, I can tell you that. So, Eric Ten Hag, Mark Ogden here and Rob Dawson on ESPN are pretty much saying the deal is done. Manchester United have made their decision. Ten Hag is getting the job. One of the reasons, not the exclusive reason, but one of the reasons, he writes, PSG's readiness to hold out for a £15 million compensation package was another issue for United, who are able to appoint Hag if they pay a £1.7 million compensation figure to Ajax. So certainly financially it makes more sense to go for Ten Hag. Why else do you suspect they have gone for Eric Ten Hag?
For a start, let's say it once correctly. Erik Ten Hag, and Ten Hag is his surname. And so I think it's a very good choice. Ten Hag, he had everything against him. He's an ugly guy, bald, uncharismatic. He speaks in this kind of Eastern Dutch provincial accent, so he sounds like a kind of country rube. He wasn't a very impressive footballer. He was a kind of right back in the middle of the Dutch Premier League. So the fact that somebody like that then gets to the top of football suggests that he actually has something going on. He has something to offer, which he does. And so when he took over at Ajax, he was mocked for all those reasons. He didn't look like a great manager. But he actually has a very deep understanding of football, and especially pressing football. So Johan Cruyff invented modern football, the kind of pressing game we play on the other team's half. All the best teams nowadays play it. Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Liverpool. And Ten Hag, having been a manager in Holland, quite successful, went to Bayern Munich about a decade ago and became Pep's assistant. And he coached Bayern's second team, and they were on the same page. And so Ten Hag developed this very rapid pressing game that Ajax play, and that I suspect United will play if he manages to get the United players doing that, which is we win the ball when you're near your penalty area. When you have the ball near your penalty area, we have what looks like anarchy, but we have just loads of hordes of players descending on whoever has the ball. We dominate the area around the ball, and we keep winning it back near your goal, and then we score. And so Ajax, which has not got players to match those of United, if you look at a lot of the Ajax players, they kind of didn't do very well in the Premier League, like Dusan Tadic, Daley Blind, Davy Klaassen. But with Ajax, they were unlucky to be knocked out by Benfica in the second round, but they'd won 6 out of 6 in the first round of the Champions League. And Ten Hag also led the Ajax team that reached the Champions League semis, got within a minute of the Champions League final in 2019 with much, much less money than the big clubs. So I think in football terms, he's special. He doesn't look special, but he is special.
Can you tell us a bit more about his personality? Because if that's the style of football he wants to play, they are going to need a complete overhaul at Old Trafford.
Yeah, he's a very understated, calm, restrained, kind of beta male figure. He is nothing like Jose Mourinho in his presentation. He listens. He knows exactly what kind of football he wants to play. But he talks to the players. I'm recovering still from COVID a month ago. He is able to have intelligent conversations in a non-grandstanding way all the time. And so players respect him just because he knows an enormous amount of football. He's not the guy who kind of throws open the changing room door and says, here I am, now everything is different. That's not him.
So Could you give us a little more insight into the footballing acumen then? Like you mentioned the stints over in Munich, for instance. Would he have been, through his playing career or maybe early on in his coaching career, would he have done interviews or caught the eye in ways to suggest he had a lot going on intellectually?
He did. I mean, he's very understated. And what he talks a lot about when people give him the chance is half spaces, which, as I understand it, is what they used to call the inside right, inside left positions. So you divide the field into five zones, going from the left wing to the right wing. So you have outside left, inside left, centre forward, inside right, outside right. So you have 5 or 4, depending, zones where players can come in. And so you should never have 2 in the same zone. And players had to be incredibly precise about what zone they occupy, both when you have the ball, and when you have the ball, 100 miles per hour. When you lose the ball, 100 miles per hour. And then the what he calls the rest defense. So you attack, like it looks like attacking like lunatics, but you always have 3 guys back, so that if you lose the ball and the opposition breaks, they're always facing 3 players, typically the 2 centre-backs and the central midfielder. So you're actually not running many risks because there's a lock on the back door. And so this demands a huge amount of coordination and understanding from the players, which Ajax's mostly young players have done, which shows that he's good at explaining. And they've won the league, pretty much every year, I think, for the last 3, something like. So it's been very, very successful. And we all know that Manchester United is a very different set of players.
Yes. It's going to be very interesting to see how he goes in a whole host of areas. So you say there he's understated and restrained and thoughtful personality. That would suggest that the spotlight that's going to be on him, which will be unlike anything he's ever experienced. There's probably only one way to get a sense of what that's going to be like, and it's to be there, where every decision will be mulled over. It doesn't sound like he's prone to lashing out or letting criticism get to him. I suspect Ajax is its own kind of fishbowl.
Yeah, I mean, Ajax feels like a fishbowl when you're in it. And when he took charge, the biggest Dutch newspaper, the kind of Daily Mail of the Netherlands, De Telegraaf, for reasons of their own, ran this campaign against him. He was rubbish and Ajax had chosen the wrong man and so on. And they wrote this for months. And he sort of ignored it. He never engaged. He never, after a win or, when they reached the Champions League semi-finals and won 1-0 away at Spurs, he never said, you see, I was right. Yeah. Nothing. He's a very calm guy. I mean, I know because I'm the same generation as him. He's 52, I think. He's sort of past the age where you worry over much about people saying mean things about you. I know that at United people will say mean things about him, but and he knows that. But it's not going to bother him. It's also perfectly possible the project will fail, that he has a vision of how to play football. And maybe United players can't do that. But I think if it fails, it's not going to sort of be the end of him as a person.
Yes.
He'll deal with that.
It's going to be interesting to see as well how he handles disciplinary issues in this dressing room. Just to think of a couple of recent dilemmas for any coach. Ronaldo, seemingly, and it's only a report, but not included in the starting lineup for Manchester City and heading back to Portugal for the weekend, or the many leaks from the dressing room from various players, agents to journalists. All of these things are creating a pretty horrible culture around the club. Is he a disciplinarian? Is he...
Not really. I mean, he kind of treats players as grown-ups, and, if you want to say stupid things in the media, he's not very obsessed with that. What he does care about is this immense physical preparation.
Okay.
So Ajax players are super fit, and the ideal used to be, the kind of Pep ideal was, we lose the ball, we press for 5 seconds at maximum intensity. Now that's a lot, 5 seconds of 10 guys pressing like lunatics. But Ajax press for more than 5 seconds at their best. They press for closer to 10 seconds. And that takes an enormous amount out of you. So you have to be super fit. And so that is what he's going to need to do with United. I don't see how a Ronaldo, who, there is only one better player than Ronaldo, but he doesn't defend. I don't see how Ronaldo fits into that system. So I'm presuming Ten Hag quietly hopes Ronaldo will be gone by summer.
Yeah, and I guess I'm skirting around that whole issue in my various questions, because if he's wedded to this style of play, and it all sounds very impressive, there's nothing revolutionary about it now, this is the way modern football is, but if he's wedded to this style of play, then I'm sure he's well aware, so was Ralf Rangnick. In fact, Ralf Rangnick is supposedly the godfather of this style of play from a German point of view, and it hasn't worked. The players, either through a lack of understanding or a lack of fitness or a lack of application, or maybe a combination of all three, have pretty much since the opening half against Crystal Palace, where they sort of tried it in his first game, they've sort of binned that approach and have been just a mishmash of all kinds of nothing, and it's just dissipating in front of our eyes. So I'm sure Ralf Rangnick could sit at a chalkboard with Ten Hag. I hope my pronunciation is getting better, by the way. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure they could sit at a chalkboard and map it all out and agree with each other. But what he has here is a cultural problem primarily, and so like he can't have Ronaldo there. I would put it to you, he just can't, because Ronaldo on the pitch undermines the entire system. Ronaldo on the bench undermines the general atmosphere. So these are the big challenges which are going to decide his tenure, and he's going to have to win them early and win them quickly, because otherwise in 12 months he's already starting to lose the general support of everyone.
Look, I agree with you about Rangnick. Rangnick is a great man, an innovator, in the modern football that Johan Cruyff invented. And Rangnick, though, came in mid-season with a team that wasn't his.
Yeah.
Ten Hag, I'm sure, will have told the United executives, look, I don't want Ronaldo. Try and get rid of him. And he'll have made other comments to internally, which he won't publicise. He won't.
To which they'll say, "Look, we hear you. He sells a lot of jerseys. He generates a lot of clicks. We think it would be best if he stayed, Eric." So I want to know what's his response then.
I think he would say, "Look, I don't see Ronaldo playing in my system, and there are other clubs I could go to." Or I could just say Ajax, which has been a very happy place to work for me for 4 years. So, and he would say, I think, to United, look, do you want to keep finishing third? And I think he's not sort of the world's most ambitious man. And I think he would have said to United, look, I completely understand you want to keep Ronaldo and sell shirts, and I think it's probably better if I don't come.
Okay.
I don't see why he would need to coach United if it's not going to be the United that he wants to coach. And he's not kind of a megalomaniac. So at Ajax, Mark Overmars did the transfers until Overmars was Me Too'd and turned out to sexually harass women in the club and was fired in February. But for years, he and Ten Hag worked together. And Ten Hag wasn't the guy who said, I have to control everything at the club and every transfer is under my control.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, on the Ronaldo issue and on various other issues. Do you think it's going to work out for him? Sounds like you do. Sounds like you think it's a good appointment. And if Manchester United play ball here, they have a very impressive candidate.
I think it's a good appointment. I mean, of course, the other thing is that every United manager for 9 years has failed. This is the club with the highest revenues in English football and the highest net transfer spending in all of football for a decade, and it's all been wrong. So there are obviously structural problems which one man won't necessarily solve. But I think United have made the right choice. It's also, I think, the first time that I can recall that United's manager is not an alpha male, is not a kind of dominatrix figure who, if you see Ten Hag, he looks like not even a middle manager. He looks like the guy who's the number 2 of the middle manager in the kind of IT room. You go into the IT room and you say, where's the manager? And Ten Hag looks up from behind the screen and says, yeah, sorry, he's out, come back later.
See, I just worry listening to that. And by the way, can we say we're being mean here to Ten Hag? Like the bald is beautiful, and I'm sure he's very charming in his own way, Simon.
No, I think he's a hugely admirable guy. Football is such a stupid visual industry that for someone like him, who also wasn't a great player, to become manager of Manchester United, he really had to come a long way.
Sure.
Say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had zero achievements as a manager when they gave him the job.
Yes. Well, I'm sort of joking with you anyway, but on Solskjaer, that I was just going to make the very point. I guess I don't know Ten Hag, not really. I watched Ajax in the Champions League, but based on what you're saying, I feel like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not an alpha male, and therefore he was bullied into taking Ronaldo, something I don't think he wanted to do, and he was pushed around by the executives, and they were more than happy to push him around and make terrible decisions. And so I just wonder if maybe you do need a stronger character to push back in the way that Solskjaer didn't.
I don't know about character. I think, unlike Solskjaer, Ten Hag knows how he wants a top-level team to play football. And he's thought it through in a lot of detail. And unlike Solskjaer, he spent kind of 15 years working on that, how you play football. And he studied under Guardiola. And so I just couldn't understand why they appointed Solskjaer. I thought, you're United, you could appoint one of the 5 best coaches in the world. If I was then, I'd have gone around to say, who are the 5 best coaches in the world? Okay, which one of them can we get? Instead of saying, oh, there's this bloke who scored an iconic goal for us and he's coaching in Norway, so let's get him. So I think Ten Hag is much more, if I were running United, that's where I would have ended up.
Yeah. It strikes me, you've looked at the running of football from various quarters. You must look at Manchester United as much as the rest of us and be somewhat astounded at the level of incompetency.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't understand it. I can't understand in what universe you would decide we need a new manager and that manager should be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, and it's not that I'm saying it's after he failed. I said it before he was hired. So, I mean, I can understand the logic of going for Moyes or Mourinho. To become manager of Manchester United, you thought, it needs to prove in yourself as a manager. And so I find it baffling. And if you talk about bad management, I think their net transfer spending over the decade is €1 billion, which is the highest in global football. And, they obviously don't have very much to show for it.
No. I guess a final point, like a texter who's listening or somebody watching on YouTube, Joseph O'Hanlon makes the point, Bruno Fernandes just extended his contract until 2027. He reckons he wouldn't fit into a Ten Hag system, it seems. At a glance, Ronaldo aside, how equipped are these Manchester United players to fit into a Ten Hag system? Maybe starting with Fernandes, for instance. Paul Pogba, I think he wouldn't be upset if he leaves in the summer.
I mean, Pogba can do anything. I mean, Pogba is the most gifted footballer in Europe. He's not the best footballer in Europe, but he has more gifts than anyone except maybe Messi and Ronaldo. And, I mean, Pogba is sort of, he's weird because he wants to express himself on the field, which you're not supposed to do as a footballer, especially one who can also be the best defensive footballer in the world, best defensive midfielder in the world. So Pogba has a whole different problem. He could do exactly what you want. He could be the best pressing midfielder, number 6 in the world, but he doesn't seem to want that. Bruno Fernandes, I think, is fine because, Dusan Tadic came to Ajax and became the main figure, the most important and the captain of Ten Hag's team. Because Tadic, he's not fast, he's not strong, he can't really tackle. But like Fernandes, he's a brilliant footballer who understands football. And so he and Ten Hag talk all the time, as I'm sure Fernandes and Ten Hag would, about space and you need to be there. And, you are the person who's going to create the goals in my team, but you need to do some other things, which you'll completely understand how to do. So, I mean, I think a footballer like Bruno Fernandes would actually be happier in a team with a system than United, which seems to me a team almost without a system.
Yeah, no, they're completely out of system. Jadon Sancho thrived in a system at Dortmund. I think quite a few of them are just crying out for a system, in fact. So, interesting times. Thank you so much, and we wish you well the recovery, by the way, but thank you so much, Simon, for coming on and give us an insight into Erik ten Hag.
Pleasure to talk to you.
You're going to be correcting me with that in about 18 months still, but hopefully he's still at Old Trafford then. Thank you.
Aye.
Simon Cooper with us there. Latest in the Champions League, by the way. Chelsea 1, Real Madrid 3. Still the score, 94th minute. Villarreal still 1-0 up on Bayern Munich. And as we mentioned earlier, Burnley 3, Everton 2 is a full time. You give great insights in the book to just different players in a whole host of ways. Like, for instance, David Beckham. When it came to bleep tests, we've all done the dreaded bleep tests in our PE days. Nobody came close to Beckham.
No. As I saw it, for the time that I was there, nobody came close to Beckham. But the interesting thing about David is this. He liked to come in the gym, he liked the boxing, and all. They weren't the best, but he liked to put the work in, and he did a lot of extra out on the pitch. But he come to me one day, and it was probably about a year before he left. And he said, the one thing I'm not happy about is my speed out on the pitch. How can I get faster? I said, well, do you train hard? He said, yeah, of course I train hard. And I said to him, well, what do you think would make you faster? He said, I really don't know. You know, people have told me loads of things and this, that and the other. And I just said to him, right, I want you to use your imagination. So you're walking down a busy street and you're with Brooklyn holding his hand. And you can see there's a wagon coming down the road very fast. And then you notice that Brooklyn's no longer holding your hand. He said, what? I said, if you knew that Brooklyn was near to the road and you could see this wagon, how quick could you get to him? But I'm going to stop you there, don't tell me yet. We're in the cup final. You're in the 18-yard box and a ball runs free. And you can run at that ball and smash it in the back of the net as long as you're fast enough. Now tell me, in which instance would you be the fastest? He said, that's obvious, isn't it? I said, why? He said, well, it'd be my son, to save my son. I said, right, good. But tell me, in that instance, have you done any extra training? Have you, you built your muscles up or done some extra speed stuff? No, you haven't. What it is, it's your desire to make sure that you get your son to go faster. That's what we've got to look at. You're thinking you're not fast enough. Well, I say to you, your desire is not high enough. Now, if you can improve your desire, we can give you exercises that will help you to become faster. That's absolutely no problem. But you've got to have that desire and then the desire to train. And he really went for that.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor.